The story this time is called The Heavenly Demon Wants a Peaceful Life, but let's be real, this damn protagonist has no intention of living peacefully. First off, the guy starts the story already engaged to a gorgeous fiancée, and still ends up at brothels during his first 30 nights, claiming he's trying to restore his body's vitality. His very first move, testing if he still has any power by launching an attack at a poor maid. If he wasn't so weak, he would have been dead on the spot. In just the first week, he's already wiped out the leaders of all the major groups in the region, just because they said he was only good for visiting massage parlors. And he's doing all of this while his body is still completely wrecked. See, in his past life, he reached the absolute peak of human power, but realized too late that the path he chose only led to death. Now in his second life, he's armed with more knowledge than anyone else, but stuck in the worst body possible. Even so, he's sworn that this time he'll go farther than any human ever has. This is the story of how someone who once stood at the top claws his way back to the throne, even when the odds are stacked against him. Under the moonlight, a bunch of troops advance toward the celestial demon who's flying in the sky. He asks if blood and fear is all that they want. The army attacks and he says, well, if that's what they want, then that's what they'll get. Everyone's bodies start exploding and the sky turns red. Blood rains down. He says they're way too weak, while the rest of the survivors hesitate to even draw their swords. He starts preparing another attack, but then the soldiers decide to strike back and all rush toward him. But the damn demon says that today they're going to learn the power of demonic arts. The whole ground starts shaking, and a giant hand rises. It goes after the army, who starts trying to flee, but they get crushed and dragged. Everyone who's dying wonders if something like this is even possible. How could so many people together not defeat a single person? And with that, the hand closed up in the sky, and once again, it rained blood. The demon smiled and asked where the next challengers were. But the battlefield, now covered in corpses, was silent. Until suddenly, he felt something and clutched his chest. He started coughing up blood as a black mist approached him. This was the price for using the demonic art to this extent. He was paying the price for the absolute power he had after consuming countless souls. He believed that one day he'd overcome this curse that no one had ever broken, and apparently arrogance got the better of him. From the middle of the darkness, a bunch of purple eyes stared at him. When you looked down, some chains rose up from the ground and flew toward him. He seemed to be floating over a kind of void, and his legs, arms, and neck got bound. He asks if someone is trying to drag him to hell, and the guy let out a scream that shattered the curse right away, saying he won't be forced to do this. But suddenly, a light shines in front of him and his body starts to disintegrate. That's when he realizes the demonic art he used his entire life was truly inescapable. If he had a chance in another life, he'd follow a different path. He says he wants a peaceful, quiet life. But guys, like I already warned you, I read up to chapter 5. I can guarantee he doesn't want a peaceful life. Not at all. Somewhere with that classic Japanese-style scenery, the boy is standing in front of a lake. That's when the maid Susu shows up and tells him to eat before it gets cold. The boy raises his hand and slashes at her, like he wanted to slice her neck with power. That's Biep-Tezan, our reincarnated celestial demon. And obviously the girl's still alive because he has no power. The jerk was just testing. In other words, yeah, if he had any power, she'd already be dead. She's got that weird look on her face saying that lately he's been acting strange. She sends him to his room right away while he just keeps staring at his own hand, confused. He can't believe he wasn't able to cut a neck, and that he reincarnated into such a trash body. And when he looks into the water, he says he hates that reflection of a face that looks like a girl's. A little later, during lunch, he was struggling just to hold the chopsticks, while repeating to himself that this body is worse than trash. Thoso tells him to calm down and that soon he'll start getting better. She heard about an extremely skilled doctor who's coming this time, but he wants to know what some doctor, whose name he doesn't even know, could possibly do. She tells him to be a little more positive, that things will start working out soon. But it's true, man, it's already been 10 days since he reincarnated into this stinking body. He's the second son of the best merchant in the city, Wuhan. He gets up all bony, and as soon as he puts his hand to his face, a bunch of people come to help, checking his blood pressure, offering water, and dressing him. His body was such trash that he literally couldn't even eat on his own. Not to mention that the demon hated how his face was too pretty. What a terrible problem to have, huh? He finds it funny that someone who once stood at the top of the world is now struggling just to survive. For now, he's using every bit of energy he has just to keep breathing, and he knows the fastest way to recover would be by stealing people's soul energy. If he were still the demon he used to be, it would be as simple as killing and stealing. The problem is, he's way too weak for that now. He sits down thinking that he could die at any moment. But not even Wuhan wants that to happen, since he's been given a rare opportunity. That's because he had a realization about the demonic art right before dying. Now that he understands what the wrong path looks like, he can use that info to pursue something completely different. He then calls for Soso and says that today he's going out. She wants to know where he's planning to go and says she can take him wherever he wants. The rascal says he wants to visit the courtesan's house, commonly known as a massage parlor or brothel. Soso was about to say, good to know, but then her expression changes and she asks if she heard and right. He finds it odd and wants to know why she's so confused. She just replies that if that's the case, it'd be better if guard Sueon went with him instead of her. Still, she says she's never seen him acting like this. He tells her that if that's the case, she can go with him. But obviously, she just refuses and he walks off. A while later, she's putting a cloak on him, thinking that for the past few days, he's been acting really strange. And now, just like that, he says he wants to visit a brothel. Taesin asks where the bodyguard is and she tells him not to worry, that he's someone who's always been training to protect the young master. Then she asks him not to be so hard on himself and he asks why. She says that lately she's felt like he's given up on everything. He should try to cheer up a little, especially since the doctor is already at the house. Our Taesin just thinks to himself that now that his power's been reduced to that of a normal person, he can finally start to understand how people really feel. He could tell she genuinely cared about him, which wasn't such a bad thing. Suddenly, he looks toward the gate and says the guy's arrived. Someone sneezes outside and she wants to know how he noticed, which makes him think, of course I'd noticed someone with an aura like that. The gate opens and Taesin stares the man down. Shin Kyung-won introduces himself, saying it's been a while since the young master summoned him. Our protagonist, staring at him, thinks this guy is like the embodiment of a blade. His energy is so refined, it's hard to believe he really works as a bodyguard. Maybe his father's merchant group isn't as normal as he thought. Sometime later, they're arriving at the grand battlefield Man, the House of Fragrant Roses. They get off a horse, and at the entrance, Kyung-won says he'll wait there. The protagonist wants to know why. They're outside, so why would he just stand around? Kyung-won tries to explain, but Taesin just wants to know if he's really confident he can protect him before anything happens. The poor guy didn't even get a chance to respond before Taesin was already walking ahead, telling him to hurry up and come have some fun. The guy replies that he can't do that. Taesin doesn't care, you can't have fun or you can't follow my orders. With just one stare, the guy started trembling, right? Then Taesin walks up and says it'd be great if he could both have fun and protect him. But at the very least, if he doesn't want to enjoy the place, he should at least stay close to him. Kyung-won Man just bowed his head and said he understood, right? With that, the girls open the doors and he's greeted by all the workers. Look at his face, he came here to cause trouble. Some are playing little songs and a little while later, they're all sitting around the table chatting. Taesin asks where the bodyguard is and one of the girls says he's right outside keeping watch. Man, you can already tell he's one of those by the book types. Hard to change his mind. One of the girls comes over to serve some alcohol, but Taesin says his body isn't feeling too well, so today he'll let only them drink. Confused, the girls ask what he even came here for then. He says that first he wants to hear all the rumors going around about him. They're a bit confused, so he explains he wants to know what people say when they talk about the second son of the city's merchant leader. He's going to ask each of them and wants honest answers. A while later, he finds out that everyone believes he's going to inherit 1,000 gold coins, a small mansion, and a few courts and houses. But obviously, compared to his father's wealth, that's not much. Turns out the important share of the fortune is going to the other son, Taesu. He's Taesin. In other words, a slight difference. For him, just coming here was worth it because this is the kind of info he'd never get at home. No one would dare to say things like that around him. Suddenly, he gets up and says enough chit-chat. It's time to get started. Unfortunately, it'd be hard for him to deal with all of them at once, so today he'll choose just one. He gives a stare, Man, and that one girl already knows she's been chosen. Next scene, he's in bed and she approaches. The girls outside are all gossiping, wondering if he'll come back another day and why he picked Ryong. She sits beside him and he asks how long she's been working at this house. She says 10 years. Man, she's experienced. No lack of talent there. He smiles back and says if that's the case, then they can begin. Meanwhile, the other girls are all going down the stairs, saying they'll ask their friend later what happened. One of the workers is just quietly observing all this chatter, when suddenly, a loud moan echoes through the whole place. The sound served as a whole show for our boy. The other guys having fun, the guards, everybody in the house could hear the screaming. One of them even scratches his face and says, "Impressive sounds, huh?" One of the girls comments that apparently the soundproof barrier wasn't working. Inside the room, it was really loud, and the girl was gripping the bedsheets tight. But in reality, he was using a technique extracting something from the woman's head. Sometime later, he opens the room door and Kyung-won asks if he's alright. He smiles and says he's feeling better than ever. Then he starts walking down the stairs as the girls all stare from behind. A while later, they call out to Ryong and want to know what happened. She was 100% alive, and not only that, they all start saying she looked even more beautiful. Her skin and hair were more radiant. Her eyelashes seemed longer. They were all confused about what had happened. Had the guy given her some kind of elixir or something? She says that's not quite it. She doesn't remember what happened. But her body feels incredibly light, like she's been reborn. What exactly did that rascal do to leave her feeling like that? Meanwhile, back at the house where he lives, Soso is doing laundry, wondering if the boy passed out in the courteson's house. When suddenly, the gate opens. And when she sees it's our boy, 100% alive and well. She runs up asking if he really went to see a courtesan and came back all in one piece. He doesn't answer. just tells her to ask Kyungwon. The guy's standing there all awkward, like he doesn't really want to explain anything. But she already noticed. The boy seemed just fine. A while later, back in his room, there he was, concentrating the energy he absorbed from her. Even with all the power he took in, he only managed to restore a small part of his body. The truth is, what he took from her wasn't really life energy or anything like that. In his past life, every time he absorbed energy, he killed people, but that caused side effects. So instead of absorbing death-filled negative energy, now he was purifying the person's thoughts, soul, and body, and then absorbing that energy in a sort of purer state. That was the realization he apparently had at the end of his life, when he started disintegrating and finally understood why everything had gone wrong. That's exactly why he went to the courtesan's house, because those women for sure had been through a lot in life. So he already knew they'd have plenty inside to purify. But still, the biggest problem for him is this filthy body of his. Looks like he's going to have to visit that house a lot for a while. 10 days go by and the girls, man and woman alike, are all running through the halls in a frenzy, saying they can't believe how often he's been coming there, especially with that weak little body of his. All of them are eager to get a chance with the guy, since after the purification, they do get a visual upgrade. Not to mention, he's the son of a rich family, so well, if he happened to fall for one of them, that'd be her golden ticket to a new life. Walking through the halls, all of them are staring, trying to seduce the rascal. While he's throwing compliments around, another girl's feeling left out. The owner of the house is pissed that this bastard's been showing up every single day. A mysterious voice asks if they should try strengthening the soundproofing. To which she replies that she's already tried all kinds, but it's useless. Every time that bastard comes in, it's nothing but screaming in that room. Even the other customers are starting to complain. But then she asks if the shadow ghost doesn't find it strange that someone who is practically on their deathbed is suddenly acting like this. And why is he coming specifically to this courtesan house when his family owns some of their own? The shadow asks if they should try finding out what these guys are plotting. She replies that for now it's better not to. After all, they're the most powerful merchant group in the city. First, she needs to figure out exactly what is going on inside those rooms. Meanwhile, our boy's walking down the hallway, still being chased by all of them. Just seeing the guy makes all the girls smile with those dumb love-struck faces. But as he looks around, he tells himself that today he's in the mood for more of a challenge, and wonders where she is. He turns to one of the attendants and says, "Bring out all the working girls," which leaves the man confused. He replies that the most beautiful and popular ones are already right there. The ones who aren't present are the ones who don't draw much attention. But the rascal already spotted one in the back. He walks through the crowd, saying he decides who draws attention. The girls look like they're fuming as they see he's heading toward the ugliest of them all. He asks for the name of the girl, all surrounded by this dark aura, and she replies, Danyang. He says it's nice to meet her, and that today he's going to need her services. The other girls are all whispering that this guy sure has a unique taste. He keeps walking through the hallways while noticing that she had an extremely depressive energy. Most likely, she was full of things to purify, exactly the kind of person he needed. Now that he was recovering part of his body's health, it was time for a slightly harder challenge. He bursts open the door, but pauses for a moment. Then he smiles and says, "Just look at these bastards." He calls for Kyungwon and asks for his sword. As soon as it's handed to him, he throws it up and the blade stops, hitting the ceiling over the bed. Blood drips from the blade, and right then they realize there was an assassin in the room. The protagonist just comments that the guy is still alive, which makes him mad at himself, right? Man, he caught the guy off guard and still couldn't finish him. But seeing the blood dripping in the room, Danyang wasn't too thrilled about the situation. Our guy just tells Kyungwon to handle it because he had some business to take care of with the girl. He calls out to Danyang and tells her to get ready, because today he was going to suck the soul out of her body. "Oh, you silly dog, you only say that because you mean it literally, huh? If it were in the other sense, I doubt you'd be talking all tough like that." Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Yeon. A girl standing up says she heard that the second master of the house has been visiting courtesans every night. The girl sitting down tells her what people have been calling him lately. That's the mansion's guard, Yu Soyeon, and she says he's now being called the king of the House of Fragrant Roses, or even the man of unmatched potency. The girl standing slams her hand on the table and demands to be taken there right now. She has to meet him. Her name is Yeon Harem, and she's the fiancée of our boy. So yeah, this dude's been visiting the ladies for 10 days straight with a fiancé. Yeah, he's a real madman. And Harem says she's going right now to find him. Meanwhile, someone's arriving to tell our protagonist that he needs to return home. But the main thing he wants to know is what Kyungwon did with the assassin. Kyungwon, a bit startled, says he left the guy in prison. Taeza nods, says he did a good job and that it's time to go back. But the servant is still wondering if this is even the same master he once knew. Not only has his energy changed, but now he suddenly has enough skill to kill an assassin like that. It's almost like he's become a completely different person. Sometime later, he's arriving back home. A bit more upbeat. Finally, his body was starting to recover. Of course, he's still far from where he once was, but he's also no longer someone you call trash. Feeling proud over such a small victory made him realize how much he's changed. But then he suddenly stops and wonders, who are these two in front of me, and why is the one on the left staring at me like that? One of them steps forward and asks if it's true he's been spending every night at the Corson house. The protagonist, however, has no idea who this crazy girl is. Harem asks if he's dissatisfied with their engagement, if this is some plan to push her away. Only then does Taesin realize dude's engaged. She says that even if he's doing this on purpose, she's never going to give up on him, getting all clingy already. And she just asks that he doesn't give up on her either. Our boy obviously is confused. He has no idea who this crazy girl is, so what is she even saying? But honestly, and in his own way, he answers that he didn't do this with those intentions. And the moment he says he won't give up on her, a little smile pops up on her face. She's all emotional now, saying her feelings are finally being understood. But before he can say anything else, she's already walking off, saying she's leaving. And while she's right there clinging to him, he's thinking to himself, this girl actually got me stuck for a second. So far, she's the most powerful enemy he's ever met. And then he notices that his servant was already walking up ahead and sticking real close. Oh, guys, what's going on here? A while later, Soso is giving our boy a bath fully clothed, asking if he ran into Miss Yan on his way back. He wants to know how she already knows that, and she says she's got eyes and ears all over this place. But he's already sure. She must have been the one who ratted him out to those two, right, telling them he's been visiting the lady's house every single day. Suddenly, Soso asks if Kyungwon's doing all right, which leaves our boy confused. Why wouldn't he be okay? Then she explains his warrior has a crush on his wife's warrior. Man, that's too easy, huh? Our protagonist has a servant, he already has a wife, and now this servant likes his wife's servant. What the heck? It's all perfectly balanced. 1 + 1 is 2, or in this case, 2 + 2 is 4. And now it all makes sense. Why, as soon as he passed by his wife, Kyungwon was already up ahead walking fast. Honestly, it's just weird seeing relationships where there's respect without fear, man. Because in the life he lived before, that separation didn't exist. If you wanted respect, people had to be afraid of you. But he's not hating this, which makes him wonder if his soul is being influenced by the body he's in now. Sometime later inside the prison, Kyungwon says he disabled the guy's movements using pressure points. Taesin just thanks him and tells him to open the cell. When he walks in, he observes the guy and smiles. His body was full of dark energy, which was obvious for an assassin. And for our boy, who loves some evil energy, this was basically a feast. He tells Kyungwon to stay outside, but the guy seems to hesitate. He says it's too dangerous and asks what Taesin's planning to do when they're alone. But Taesin, cool as ever, just asks how he's going to help anyway. I mean, he didn't even notice that the assassin was on the bed that night. Kyungwon gets a little embarrassed and tries to explain himself. But man, Taesin just says, I'm not repeating myself. That's when the boy goes cold and says, understood. He closes the cell and waits outside. Once again, he couldn't believe that the young master he always knew was now giving off pressure like that. For a second, it felt like he was standing face to face with a martial arts master. Suddenly, screaming breaks out from inside the cell and Kyungwon draws his sword. But he quickly realizes it's not the young master's voice, it's the criminal screaming. What he really wants to know is what the heck is going on in there. Obviously, Taesin was extracting the man's soul energy. And seeing just how corrupted that energy was, he realized this guy was way more dangerous than he expected. Suddenly, though, he realizes the soul was too corrupted for him. He has to cancel the transfer and wonders if it was just too much for him to handle. To purify properly, obviously, the process has to go until only clean energy is left. But in this guy's case, the soul was so tainted that it would have ended up affecting Taesin's own soul, so he had to back off. Looks like this guy is way too dangerous to handle right now. So for now, he'll have to stick to resolving things through the courtsons. Meanwhile, at the House of Fragrant Roses, the madam is biting her nails, trying to figure out what's going on. It had been 2 days since her shadow assassin was captured by Taesin, but so far, the guy hadn't shown up again. The servant is there, not really sure what to say, when suddenly someone bursts in and calls for the madam, saying she needs to come right now. That's when the shadow ghost enters, but the guy says something's off about him. The madam asks why he's all twisted up and trembling like that. She immediately orders them to strike the pressure points to release him, whatever's wrong with him. The guy obeys and hits a point on the back of the neck. But then, the man's body starts to fall apart. Before either of them can understand what's happening, he collapses like a puddle of jelly, only his skeleton left behind. Right then and there, she's sure this is the work of the merchant group, the one tied to Taesin's family. She asks, where is Danyang? The guy responds that they were planning to send Danyang to the master of the Crimson Dragon clan. But the madam says they won't be doing that anymore. Instead, they're going to send Danyang to Master Taesin, not that other guy. The servant hesitates, saying that's insane. Obviously, the Dragon Master will come after them once he finds out. A vicious man like that, if he hears about this, would start destroying everything in sight. Even so, the madam simply says to obey and cancel her scheduled visit. The House of Fragrant Roses would be sending a new gift to young Taesin. Some time passes, and a strange rumor starts spreading in the brothel. The girls say that if you spend a night with him, you wake up more beautiful than ever, almost like you've been reborn. On top of that, it seems like you become addicted and just want to be near the boy. Some of them were even calling him a divine being who crossed time itself, and those rumors were spreading like wildfire. The madam always thought it was just an exaggerated rumor going around among the hardworking girls. But now here was Dane Yang right in front of her, saying she wanted to serve the boy. The madam laughs, wanting to know why out of nowhere she wants to drop everything and go be with Taizhen. Looks like she fell in love with him, but that would only be possible if he paid off all her debts. Dan Yang says he didn't mention anything like that it's just her intention. Suddenly, the madam's expression changes. She says she has no idea what kind of conversation the two of them had. But Dan Yang is nothing more than property of this house and will stay here until every last debt is paid. She's to obey and prepare to meet the Crimson Clan's master. Now I got a little confused. She went through all that, but in the next scene, there's Dan Yang standing outside Taizhen's house. Looks like this was before that talk. She must have made her decision after that and changed the madam's mind. So now Dan Yang is there because obviously she was sent by the madam after she changed the plan. Her problem though is that she's feeling all insecure, not sure if the boy is going to accept her. What if he thinks she's too dirty? Even with all that risk, she wanted to see him again. Girl, this boy's been going to the brothel for 30 days straight. If there's one thing he doesn't care about, it's that. There he's in his room as usual, training his body to get stronger, when someone appears on the other side and says to the young master that he has a visitor. Of course, it's Dan Yang and he's a bit confused why she's there. But right away, she places her hand over her chest and bows deeply to Master Taizhen. She says she wants to serve him for the rest of her life and apologizes for showing up so suddenly. All she wants is to stay by his side. Only now does our boy realize when he purifies someone's soul, their appearance actually improves. And the first thing he says is to ask Soso where she sleeps. She tells him there's a servant house nearby. He tells her to find another place and that she and Dan Yang should start living closer to him. Poor Soso is stunned. He didn't even say he accepted the girl, he's already giving orders. Before she can even react, he's already walking off, telling her to take care of the girl. But his servant girl starts thinking that girl is way too pretty for work like this. And once again, she wonders why her young master has changed so much lately. After spending the night with every girl in the House of Fragrant Roses, now he's visiting the House of Fallen Flowers. And since he's looking for the most broken, messed up girls full of baggage, the name alone was already a promising sign for him. He was eager for the kind of corrupted energy he could absorb from that place. But as he's approaching, someone suddenly tells him to stop and look over there. Kanwon shoots a glare to the side, and the leader of the Crimson Dragons introduces himself, wanting to know if he's the one who stole the Dan Yang. The merchants nearby all seem to know. Whenever this guy shows up, there's going to be trouble. Our boy turns to Kyungwon and asks, "Who's this idiot?" That's when he explains, yeah, that's the master of the Crimson Dragon sect, an unorthodox group that had settled nearby. Taizhen just replies that unorthodox group is just a fancy way of saying they're a bunch of thugs. How could such lowly people have the audacity to be given such a grand name? He literally says to ignore those idiots and just walks off like he doesn't care. Obviously, that doesn't sit well with the guys. They ask if he's really going to ignore them like that. And then they tell the little gigolo to stop right there. Now that Taizhen didn't like. But to be fair, it was kind of an accurate nickname, wasn't it? I've seen people roasted way harder for way less. Still, the celestial demon mutters to himself how much he already hates this pretty face of his with every ounce of his soul. And now this damn weirdo has the nerve to call him a gigolo. The guy starts laughing, mouth wide open, saying the little boy seems scared now. But man, Taizhen is a man of few words. He takes one step forward and says, "I'll leave the rest of those who serve me." Kungwin immediately understands and draws his sword. Obviously, the other guy's underlings react too. That's when the Crimson guy says it's ridiculous to hire bodyguards just to act tough. Today, he teach them what real courage looks like. And if the kid wanted to get out alive, he just had to hand over Danyang. But Taizhen replies, "That's never going to happen. And you talk too much. What'd you fight with your mouth to?" And bam, in the next second, the guy lunges forward saying that today the kid's going straight to hell. Kyungwon had already taken down his two opponents, and when he sees the guy charging, he shouts for Taizhen to get out of the way. But our boy, cool as ever, demon mode activated, just makes a tiny movement with his hand and lands one clean hit right on the guy's chin. Unfortunately, something seems to go wrong with Taizhen's wrist. Even a simple attack like that was still too much for his body to handle. But the Crimson little boss goes down, crashing to the ground like a sack of trash. Kyungwon is concerned, but Taizhen just wants to know, are the other two dead yet? A bit embarrassed, the servant says no, they're just knocked out. Taizhen says, "You really are too weak," then tells him to finish them off and follow him. He pauses for a second and adds, "If anyone asks who killed that guy, lie. Don't say it was me." Poor Kyungwon stands there frozen, just nodding and saying, "All right, understood." But he's confused. How the heck did Taizhen kill the leader of the Crimson Dragons just like that, with no weapon? Now it was clear, what he did to that assassin wasn't just some coincidence. The problem is, it's obvious now that he's not the same person as before. The next morning, our cheeky boy wakes up, right next to Danyang. Man, I'm starting to think this soul extraction thing is just a front. The kid's clearly enjoying himself. I didn't see him extract any corruption out of her. What it looked like was that he did something a little more corrupt instead. Right now, he's mad at himself for almost breaking his wrists just to take out that useless guy yesterday. He knows he still has a long way to go, but no way is he going to accept being called a gigolo. Suddenly, though, he wants to know why Heron's bodyguard is there. Suein looks at him and says, "So you finally shown up." As usual, our boy skips the small talk and wants to know why she's here. He's sure it's not for tea. But before answering, Suein asks if that Corson who served him was one of the girls from the house he's been visiting daily. Short and blunt, he simply asks, "What's the problem?" She notices his cloak's half open and asks if he just came back from the brothel. Completely honest and unfazed, he replies, "Yeah." The poor girl seems to lose hope right then and there. She then says, "Your engagement is going to have to be cancelled." Obviously, our boy isn't really caring about any of this much. But she explains that it looks like someone sent a marriage proposal for Heron. It came directly from the Zhongli clan and the Morim alliance. And Zhongli, isn't that the guy from Genshin Impact? What's he doing here? Trying to steal our boy's wife? Because of that, Heron is kind of being forced to cancel the engagement. But she's completely against the idea. The problem is that rumors are spreading. Tazen understands that it's hard for her to refuse when everyone knows he's been out there in the brothels with all the girls, one per night or more. So he asks if she came here to warn him to be careful with this Zhongli guy. After all, these guys might try something against him. Suein explains that yes, Heron asked her to protect him. When she starts to explain about those people, he just calls them a bunch of filthy bastards. Apparently they're important because she tells him not to say stuff like that so openly. But man, this Zhongli clan seems to be the same one that abandoned him back when he was the celestial demon. So yeah, those bastards have been messing up the world for a long time. Suein stands up, saying it's interesting that she came to defend him. But he's more than curious to see what those guys are actually capable of. Sometime later, under the moonlight, 3 people are walking through the forest. Our boy has a little excited smile. That's because his body has been evolving more and more. But on the other side, Suein is always glaring at him, full of anger. He turns to her and says that if she doesn't want to follow him, she doesn't have to. But she lowers her head and says it's not like that. This is the least she can do for him. The protagonist says, "Fine then," while thinking to himself that anyone looking at this situation would probably think he wants her around or something. Then suddenly he stops. Kyungwon asks what's wrong, and he just asks how many of them are out there. The servant's a little confused, but when he looks up and behind, he sees a bunch of assassins up in the trees. Tazen spots 3, then says no. Actually, there's another one hidden, so that makes 4. The guys drop down from the trees. One of them says that it's not worth hiding anymore since they've been discovered. The one in the back with white hair says it's best for the 3 of them not to resist and just come with them. Tazen, though, is pissed that these damn thugs are once again acting like they're respectable people. Yeah, as always, he completely ignores whatever the guy says and just talks to his servant, telling him to try judging the strength difference between him and the white-haired guy. Kyungwon takes a look. He can see some energy being emitted and a faint smell of blood. Just from those details, it was clear this wasn't an ordinary assassin. He tells our boy that the guy is strong, but he believes he could defeat him pretty easily. That's because he's about 3 levels above him. Clearly, humility is not this dude's strong point, man. Everyone who shows up gets roasted and ignored. Tazen then asks why he's still standing there. It's time to check if his assessment was correct. "Man, I like Kyungwon," he just observes. Takes 1 step forward and walks right between the bandits who don't even react. Walks past, all stylish, leaving his aura behind. The leader, hand on his hip, didn't look very impressed. He starts drawing his katana, saying the guy really does have impressive energy. But it's not gonna be that easy. In the blink of an eye, Kyungwon almost takes a slash to the face, man. And the problem is, after dodging the first strike, the guy is already going for another from above. Kyungwon manages to draw his katana just in time and block the hit. That's when the real back and forth starts, you know? Strike to the head, the guy defends left and right, back and forth. The enemy activates a red aura but is clearly surprised. Kyungwon is way more skilled than he expected. He grips his sword tightly, thinking this definitely isn't just some random merchant's bodyguard. He jumps in to strike Kyungwon, but Suein tells him to be careful and says they should help him. But Tazen is calm, saying this will all be over with a single strike. Before she can even ask why, bam, there it is. Kyungwon obviously had already finished the fool. Suein, however, is stunned. How did Kyungwon defeat someone that advanced so easily? And from behind her, Tazen says that once again, Kyungwon has disappointed him. He only cut off an arm, he really had too soft a heart. The girl, obviously, looks to the side, thinking this guy's out of his mind. Still, she wants to know why Kyungwon suddenly seems to be getting stronger like that. He tells her to stop just standing there and go take care of the rest. He had some questions to ask, so they weren't supposed to kill them too brutally. Their meridians and body points are all copied, and they collapse to the ground, all twisted up. The The problem is, one of them had disappeared. Suddenly, someone yells for Tazin to dodge. When she looks to the side, there's a blade nearly slicing Tazin's neck. But before she can do anything, Kyungwon jumps in and smashes the guy's head into the ground. Tazin, though, doesn't look too happy about it. That's because, in order to save him, Kyungwon let that other one-armed assassin escape. Seriously, this damn servant is way too soft. Kyungwon apologizes, of course, for having let the assassin escape from right in front of them. Tazin thinks that if he were still the celestial demon, a mistake like that would never be forgiven. But for some reason, this time he wasn't even that mad. He just responds, "Whatever, that guy was weak as hell anyway," and tells him to gather the 3 captives. A short while later, they're all lined up and Tazin wants to know what to do with the amazing trio. He says that killing them is a pretty solid option and asks if anyone's against it. Obviously, the only ones against it are the 3 on the ground, begging for mercy. But Tazin just replies that since no one's sharing any info, he's gonna start torturing them. Which of course makes them start talking. They say they were sent by the Crimson Dragon sect, that it was an order from the vice leader and anyone who refused would get beaten up too, so they had no choice. Tazin thanks them and tells them to keep spilling info. Then he orders the 3 idiots to be brought along as they head toward the brothel. Sueyeon, however, is confused. What's going on? Was he really planning to make his usual nighttime visit after all that? But here we are again, man, at the House of Fallen Flowers. And the moaning is always echoing through all the halls. Outside the door are the 2 servants, red in the face and a bit confused. Kyungwon, poor guy, this is worse than torture. He can't even look to the side while all of this is going on. She asks if this is really okay, if he's sure he doesn't need to go in and check what's going on. He says it's normal, and that he just has to endure until morning. Sueyeon starts to think something's off, and that's when she realizes, yeah, this poor guy probably has to go through this every single night. Even the 3 captured fools are there on the floor, listening to everything. Sometime later, the sun starts to rise, and our boy comes out of the room. For some reason, the 3 little bandits now have these sweet, innocent looks on their faces, kinda like NPCs acting shy. Kyungwon says that strangely they ended up giving all the information. Looks like their plan really was to bring Tazin to the Crimson Dragon sect to handle some kind of issue. And not even the 3 of them know the identity of the guy who ran off. That's because he only does special assignments for the boss. Tazin is sure they're not lying. That guy wasn't just some random thug. He was just unlucky that Kyungwon isn't just some random bodyguard. Because, let's be honest, 99% of people would have died fighting him. The only thing he finds strange is that so far, it seems like the Zhongli clan isn't involved in any of this. Then he says they're going back home, and to bring the 3 with them. Sometime later, back home, he's opening a gate, placing the 3 guys inside, and saying he's going to apply some restrictions. Then he turns to Kyungwon and Sueyeon and tells them they better pay close attention. He was going to teach some martial arts, so they'd better learn quickly. The 2 of them are a bit confused, since they didn't even know Tazin was capable of teaching anything. But he simply tells them to learn this simple restriction technique. The secret was in how you connect energy and make it flow through the other person's body. He touches the guy's neck and warns them to be careful, because if you don't do it right, the person could die. Then he tells the guy to pay attention, because if he disobeys, he'll lose his vision. The poor guy was about to say something, but too late, man. He's already on the ground, all twisted up. No idea what's happening. Our protagonist tells them to take advantage. There's a bunch of people there to test on however much they want without worry. Kyungwon starts practicing, all while wondering where Tazin learned this stuff. Sueyeon, on the other hand, is standing back, confused by the behavior of the 2. That's when the protagonist suddenly changes expression and says he's going to teach how to make a guy's testicles explode. This is supposed to be the celestial demon who wants a peaceful life, right? And just a few seconds later, the 2 poor guys are already hunched over, suffering hard. Man, did they really blow up those guys' sacks? That's just evil. Would have been easier to just kill them in the forest. While all this is happening, we get a look at the Oziel Pavilion. A man approaches a table where a bearded guy is sitting. He seems to be reading something and asks if the House of Fragrant Roses, the first place our boy visited, recognized anything. That guy is the uncle of our protagonist, master of the Oziel Pavilion, and his name is Byuk Wohang. The one talking to him is Byuk Sangil, his son, who says that soon enough they'll expose a weakness. The father closes the scroll and says it doesn't matter if they recognize something or not. They just need to take advantage of this incident and squeeze as much profit from it as possible. That cursed perfumed house was actually an intelligence organization disguised as a Corson house. And obviously, they needed to use this to bring that place into the Golden Wall Merchant Group, which is the merchant group involving our boy's whole family. The father asks if the son has anything else to report, and he explains that the Crimson Dragon sect seems to be splitting up ever since that guy's death. One of the factions is known as the Golden Celestial Alliance, and they better keep an eye on them because they're extremely dangerous. That was an alliance formed by some merchants from the city of Han. On the surface, they seem united and coexisting peacefully, but in reality, this alliance is against their group. And now the father's wondering what those bastards are scheming this time. The son replies that he'll keep an eye out, and if he notices anything suspicious, He'll report it immediately. After a moment of silence, the old man decides to ask, "What's this I'm hearing about Tazen being called the King of the Nights?" He wants to know if the boy is using some kind of special medicine, or what exactly he's taking to be so full of energy. The son replies that he hasn't heard of any medicine. He thinks the kid's just in poor health from spending too much of it on the girls at the brothel. The way he's pouring all that energy into that place, considering his current health condition, is dangerous. He's only shortening his own lifespan. The uncle says he understands. It's all fine. But the truth is, man, he's dying of envy of that bastard. Sometime later, back at our boy's mansion, Soso is asking what happened with those bandits, now all obedient and downcast. He says they're not bandits. They're honest workers he brought to help her since she needed it. She replies that they clearly look a little suspicious. Tazen just thinks to himself that if she didn't want help, then she shouldn't have asked for it in the first place. But the truth is, man, Soso is starting to think our boy is actually a kind person. He brought in these poor guys who clearly look like they're dying to start working. Tazen then says that now they're going to get new names. From left to right, they would be Black 1, Black 2, and Black 3. The guys obviously are confused, but with just one stare, they smack their foreheads on the floor and thank him, saying it's amazing to be Black 1, Black 2, and Black 3. He turns to Soso and tells her it's decided now. That's their names and she can use them however she wants. Then he asks where Kyungwon is because he hasn't seen him for a while. She scratches her chin and says that around this time of day he's usually training. Our boy looks up the sky, saying that guy lives an absurdly honest life for someone who's just a merchant's guard. I'm not sure if that was praise or just a rose poor guy. And there he is again, man, Hyungwon, practicing his sword movements, thinking to himself that it's unbelievable how Tazen took that guy out with just one hit to the chin. He's never seen a technique like that, so how did he do something like that? Hyungwon has never regretted being part of the Sword of the Dragon organization. His job there with the merchants was simple. Whenever a crisis happened, it was his job to help. As long as he keeps that in check, he gets paid really well. But it's also true that the longer it takes him to get stronger, the more anxious he becomes. Lately, though, something has changed. Watching Tazen from a distance, he knows that that's the person who can help him reach a new level. Suddenly, someone interrupts his thoughts, asking how long he plans to keep training. When he looks back, there's our boy already saying that it's time for their daily visit to the Courtson house as usual. The servant, though, says he has something to ask, and Tazen turns, wanting to know what it is. Kyungwon just wants to know if he's no longer going to hide it. Tazen, confused, asks what he's talking about. And the guy says he started to notice ever since he dealt with that assassin on the bed, then how he killed the leader of the Crimson Guys, and now with these restriction techniques. After all that, he's absolutely sure. The protagonist wonders if this guy really already knows who he is. He thought this idiot was just another strong, dumb type, but apparently he let his guard down too much. He couldn't let anyone find out that he's the celestial demon, especially because he wants to live a peaceful life. Yeah, peaceful. We're really seeing that peace in action. Huh. His life is so peaceful, he's actually questioning whether he should kill this guy right now in case he's figured everything out. But then suddenly, Kyungwon drops to his knees and asks for help. The protagonist is a little confused, but the guy says he already knows he's a genius, and now he wants him to accept him as a disciple. Tazen gets it now. The guy thinks he's some kind of martial arts master who's been hiding his skills. And then Kyungwon says he also wants to get stronger, and that he seeks revenge, because someone had destroyed his sect. But our philosopher Tazen tells him not to let revenge be the motivator for his actions. Countless people have lost their sects. He's just one of many, and shouldn't think he's special because of that. Yikes. Poor guy. Went to share his trauma and got absolutely shut down. Our boy turns away, saying that people who use emotional things like that as motivation don't last long. That's because once those feelings fade, those people start to disappear too. That's why he only accepts someone who had the pure desire to become stronger, nothing else. Kyungwon stands there all awkward, listening to everything. And our boy says that people who walk that path can take their revenge whenever they want. The poor guy just brings his hands together, bows his head, and says he understands. Sometime later, on the bridge, on the way to visit the ladies once again, my dudes. Soyeon's always is following along, right? Not really liking all this fun. Walking ahead, our boy tells Kyungwon to stop being an idiot and start talking to her already. The fool tries to pretend he doesn't know what he's talking about. But our boy just tells him to quit acting dumb. He knows exactly what he means. Meanwhile, Soyeon is wondering if he really does this every day. What did her young lady even see in a person like this? But suddenly, Tazen stops and says the air has a strange scent of blood. No one else smells anything right, and our boy says they're all idiots, only smelling with their noses. Sorry, 6th sense. I haven't unlocked Smell 2.0 yet. Tazen immediately senses that it's the same aura as the guy who got his arm cut off. And from the presences he's picking up, it's clearly more than one person. He turns and tells the two of them to go kill someone. And even before he finishes the sentence, Kyungwon is already gone. Soyeon, on the other hand, still hasn't sensed anything and doesn't know what to do. But suddenly, she notices something approaching and grabs a small blade. Actually, no. It was our boy who grabbed the blade. And he tells her to stop standing there like an idiot or she'll die. Poor thing still has no idea where the attack is coming from. He sort of points in a direction and tells her to go over there, saying she better give it her all. Right then, one of them charges in, and that white-haired guy shows up again, swinging his sword. But the guy's missing an arm, so even Suyeon could defend herself easily. The guy realizes she's weaker than Kyungwon. She grits her teeth and rushes forward, telling him not to move from there. But turns out she stepped into a trap he had set, and everything starts exploding under her feet. Actually, it was probably a trap meant to freeze her in place, because the guy took that chance to charge straight toward our boy. She realizes that from the beginning, he was trying to create an opening to kill the young master. And the way things were going, it looked like he was going to be killed. It even seemed like the guy had managed to stab his blade right into Taezin's chest. But Taezin smiles and says, "It's moments like this where you can tell who's inexperienced." The guy's expression changes when he sees that our boy caught the sword under his armpit man. And before he can even understand what's happening, he gets hit in the neck and goes down coughing up blood. Suyeon still hasn't even managed to move and is in disbelief that he defeated that guy with one hit. Once again, he tells her to stop standing still and actually be part of the fight. Poor thing's there, apologizing, saying she'll do her best. He then tells her not to forget to bring that loser's body. They were going to put it to use. Kneeling down to pick up the body, she can't believe Taezin actually beat that guy. The guy she would have struggled with without even getting a chance to move. Ah, now she's looking at him with different eyes, huh? You can tell because now she's already saying she found someone who's going to change her life. Apparently, the fact that he sees a different girl every night in a motel doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. She's desperate to stay by his side and figure out what kind of technique he used. Walking under the moonlight, she gets hit with another scolding. He tells her that based on her performance today, she's way too weak to think about protecting him. From today on, she'd be training the Kyungwon. She's kind of hesitating, but in a way, it would be like learning from our boy, since he wanted her to get stronger, and maybe she could even become a disciple in the future. But suddenly, she changes her expression and asks, "Where's Kyungwon?" He tells her not to worry, he can take care of himself. But if she wants, she can go find him. Obviously, he had defeated the other thug with ease. Or, actually, it wasn't that easy. He's sitting there all out of breath, saying that Bastard was tougher than he expected. Still, even so, he did manage to defeat the guy with a certain ease. He stops for a second with a dumb look on his face, like he's trying to scan the surroundings, but he doesn't sense any humans. In other words, where are the two he came with? The next day at the Ozville Pavilion, once again with the uncle of the father or whoever that crazy guy is. They're talking about how Taezin is going to the Courtson house to bring some corpses, which kind of goes against the old man's plans because he wanted to absorb those guys himself without making things more complicated. But with Taezin doing that, he doesn't have much choice. And the one passing along the info also says that the Crimson Dragon Sex Master said he has no choice now but to hunt down Master Taezin. The uncle says that unfortunately, they can't let this incident slide. Something has to be done. There were too many eyes on that one person, and at this rate, it would start to affect the reputation of the Golden Wall Merchant Group. He walks over to the window and says it seems like Taezin is recovering his health. The son replies that it's hard to believe. It seems like every night he spends all of his vitality, but somehow stays 100%. Could you be using some kind of elixir? The uncle just says, maybe one day we'll discover that legendary secret. Back home, the meal had been set on the table, and look there. Black 1, Black 2, and Black 3 were with them. Man, the guys are being treated well. The protagonist asks why they're not eating, and they seem a bit hesitant. It's kind of rude to eat at the same table as the master. But he just says they're part of his group now, so they should start eating right away. From now on, they'll all eat together at every meal. Black 1, 2, and 3 immediately respond that this really is a great idea. That's when Soso says that the guy known as the Divine Doctor would be arriving today. There were rumors that he could fix any body, even one completely drained of vitality. But our boy replies that he'll keep recovering just fine as long as he can keep going to the Courtson's house every night. Everyone's a bit awkward. Kinda stunned, he says that so openly in front of everyone. And weirdly, Soso kind of gets it. She says it's not possible that he's recovering by doing that. It's not like he's stealing energy from them. But he replies that you could say what he's doing is something pretty similar. She wants an explanation, but he just says to let him know as soon as the doctor arrives. She says it seems like he took some accommodations elsewhere in the city, and from what she heard, he wants to check out the area he's passing through before coming over. At the top of the mountain, a man in a hat looks down at the city. He says that the name Golden Wall Merchants is pretty grand. Another handsome bastard just showed up, and whenever a story already has a bad boy protagonist and a pretty guy appears, there are only two options. Either he's gonna die, become a villain, and get wrecked, or he's gonna be the dumb friend who gets humiliated all the time. It's always like this. Who wants to place bets with me? Back to the lunch that was happening before. Our protagonist is eating peacefully, and then mentions he heard people saying Black One had been helping out quite a bit lately. The poor guy gives a shy smile and says he didn't do anything special. He was just watching over the warehouse and giving a hand. He then adds that Black 2 and Black 3 are the most hardworking ones of all, And he's also noticed that lately the master is getting more and more handsome. He says he's not lying, he's not just trying to flatter him. He's noticing that the master looks taller, stronger, and his skin is smoother each day. Even though he's a man, he's starting to feel more and more in love. Our boy tells him to shut up and stop saying disgusting stuff. But Black 1 keeps praising him, saying it really is amazing how much the young master is growing. Black 2 and 3, on the other hand, are thinking this nutcase should really just shut up. But the protagonist knows that, in a way, the guy's noticing something that's actually true. He's not as pale as before, and he's been regaining his muscle, right? Because he just keeps absorbing the quartzins. But whatever the result of all this is, the only thing he knows is he can't stop accumulating souls. If he keeps doing this one day what? You're going to live a peaceful life like the title of this story says? Yeah, definitely not. Sometime later, we see a bunch of people gathering at the entrance. They've arrived with the so-called Divine Doctor. A guy in a green robe greets him, saying it's an honor to meet him. That's Gamugin, the guy in charge of the people who work in the Golden Gate Mansion, the one belonging to our boys' merchant group. And the Divine Doctor replies that this is just a simple matter of fate. He's eager to meet the patient and asks that he be brought in. The guy, just like us, is thinking, this brat looks way too young to be the Divine Doctor. As they walk through the mansion, the doctor comments that this place is really impressive. Gamugin explains that the owner of the Golden Gate Group poured a ton of money into building all this. It's one of the 3 largest pavilions in the whole region. Nearby, the Black 1, 2, and 3, I still don't know which is which, are working on the plants. The doctor glances over and asks who that woman is. Getting a little smitten, are you, sly guy? Gamugin says she's the second servant of the young master of the mansion. Apparently, she's a woman who came from a well-known courtesan house in the province. She's one of the ones who came here asking to serve the boy. The doctor looks over and asks if the other women went through something similar. He replies yes. Those other girls are also from courtesan houses, and after he visited them, they came over asking to work for him. Man, this doctor is getting peculiar now. He says each of them has an extremely rare body constitution, and he wants them for himself. Gamugin thinks to himself that he never imagined the Divine Master would be a guy so interested in multiple women. A bit awkward, he says he understands what he means, especially since they're all very beautiful. But the doctor cuts him off and says he's referring strictly to their physical constitution. He's not talking about physical appearance, right? Most likely he means their bodies are pure, like smell. Someone in that state could learn anything they wanted. Gamugin apologizes for misunderstanding, and the doctor says it's fine. He just wants to know if he can take them all as disciples. Gamugin starts trembling a bit because, after all, they all belong to the young master. And the doctor says that if the guy agrees, it'll be a favor he'll never forget. With that sly little smile, he's sure that no matter how wonderful those girls are, only an idiot wouldn't take the chance to form a relationship with him. Yeah, fellas, looks like I called it. This guy is gonna pull a little villain act and end up getting whooped by our boy. The fool is completely confident, thinking the guy will accept. But face to face with our protagonist, he gets rejected immediately. The doctor asks him to think it over, saying it would be a big opportunity for the girls too. Tezin, though, asks why someone who already has 10 disciples wants 4 more. He was clearly a greedy man, more than Tezin could tolerate. The doctor starts to sweat, feeling awkward, and says that the people who came with him aren't necessarily disciples. They're just helpers with the work. But Tezin replies that it didn't look that way, considering how that crowd of old men was glued to him. They were either disciples or subordinates. Besides that, our boy is sure that the man in front of him is much older than he appears. Now it makes sense, right? The bastard is hiding his true age. And after pausing for a moment, he says, an opportunity to learn what I can teach doesn't come easily. But Tezin just wants to know, what exactly would my girls gain from learning one of your techniques? He slams the tea on the table and says the problem here is that the doctor is trying to take something that belongs to him. Besides that, he knows full well the guy isn't actually interested in teaching them medical techniques. He knows what he really wants is the materials they can provide. The doctor, a bit awkward, says it's impossible to use humans as materials. But deep down, he's thinking that the protagonist crossed a line by saying that. The boy in front of him had weak energy and a lousy body. Maybe he should just kill him here and now. If he said the boy died in the middle of treatment, no one would probably care. But then, man, something comes flying toward him and hits right in the middle of his forehead. Boom, his hat is sliced, and Tezin just asks if he really looks like an easy target to him, and warns that what the doctor understands about martial arts is less than the bare minimum to even think about messing with him. Alright then, the doctor is shaking all over, completely stunned. He doesn't even understand what kind of bloodlust this is. It's like someone is screaming inside his head. He's losing his grip. Tezin then says that this is bothering him a bit. These are people who work for him, and it's going to be annoying if people like him keep showing up trying to take them. After all he wants is to live a peaceful life. Sure, man, we believe you. The doctor's standing there like the rest of us, looking dumbfounded, thinking this guy clearly doesn't want anything peaceful in his life. But that fear he just felt. He's felt it once before. Then our boy says that actually he does need someone to handle a few small problems. Oh man, I nailed it twice. First, I said the guy was going to play the little villain role. Second, that he'd end up turning into an ally, and it looks like that's what's happening. Next scene, Gamujin asks if the doctor is really planning to work here now too. And the doctor already says yes, that his life's great dream is now to work for Master Taisen. Of course, Gamujin accepts on the spot, saying it's an unexpected decision, but incredible. He swears on the name of the Golden Wall merchants that he won't be disappointed living here. The doctor thanks him, but obviously, the servants who came with him are all confused, not understanding why he's suddenly acting like this. The doctor's thinking that he lived a free life for a long time, but in the end, he ended up screwed in a place like this. Treating Taisen shouldn't take more than a month or two. The problem is, getting rid of him wouldn't be easy. After feeling that bloodlust, he's just relieved he didn't piss himself on the spot. Kenwin asked our boy if he's sure this is a good idea. He had placed restrictions on all the doctors, but the main one didn't want to accept. Taisen says not to worry, he had already personally placed a restriction on that guy. That's why he won't be able to do anything. Kenwin then asks why he didn't just do it to everyone, since he could. And our boy gives the obvious answer. He's still really sick and doesn't have the energy to waste doing that. Plus, it's important to understand that those guys aren't normal doctors. Suddenly, the doctor appears right next to them, and already says that his new job now is to take care of Master Taisen's health at all times. So of course he'll always be staying close to him. Then Suyeon jumps in with an honest question for the doctor. She wants to know if it's really okay for someone so sick to be visiting the courts and house every single day and night. Not only that, but he stays there all night until sunrise. The doctor is stunned. He didn't even expect that. Even he's shocked the boy stays the whole night. The kid's a prodigy. He then asks to check Taisen's pulse, and Taisen agrees, but warns him to be quick. Look at this sneaky doctor man. He says he wants to heal, but what he really wants is to analyze and see the weaknesses, see if there's a way to kill this boy. But the moment he touched him, of course, he felt something off. That was a constitution that made no sense at all. And he asks if the boy is really a living person. The expressions of his two subordinates immediately change. And Taisen asks why he's questioning something like that just from checking his pulse. To which the doctor explains, he's never seen someone with a body constitution as bad as his. The energy flow he had was so poor, it was basically the same as a dead person. Taisen asks what he does with someone who calls him a ghost like that. Strangely enough, Kyungwon suggests exploding the guy's balls, but like, what kind of logic is that? The doctor, however, says not to misunderstand. All he's trying to say is that he needs to be treated immediately. Taisen then asks if the doctor would be willing to bet his own life on what he's saying. The doctor replies, "Of course not. Hell no, I wouldn't bet my life." He smiles and says he has no idea how to treat something like this, but that's his job, which leaves the others confused, right? Where's all that confidence coming from if you don't have the slightest clue what to do? Still, he tells Taisen he's sure that at least his reading of the body isn't wrong. But Taisen just tells him to get lost if he's not going to bet his life and doesn't even know how to treat him. The doctor, though, replies that he can't back out now. His mission is to follow him and figure out what's going on. But inside, he's thinking this whole thing is way too strange. How is this guy even moving with a body like that? Then he asks Taisen how he heard about him and the Divine Doctor title. But Taisen replies that he has no idea who he even is, honestly. The doctor thinks he's joking, asks if he's from some cult or part of the secret merchant family. Suddenly, Taisen stops walking. He turns around and says he doesn't know what cult he's talking about. But apparently, it's not very secret if he has the guts to say it out loud. Then he walks off and tells the doctor that if he keeps talking this much, he's not going to last long. Once again, the poor guy starts trembling, feeling that same bloodlust. While the two others, man, they've already learned that when you're with Taisen, you don't talk too much. You just follow and stay quiet so you don't get wrecked. And the doctor comes to the same conclusion. For now, it's better if he stays quiet. Next day, in the place where the Divine Doctor's group is staying, he's come to a few conclusions after watching Taisen all night. While he was at the courts and house, the screaming and moaning lasted all night. He realized, yeah, the boy is unstoppable. And more than that, he noticed that the girls from that specific brothel were way purer than women from other places. And all the ones with that kind of purity were the ones who spent a night with Taisen. He's now certain that, at the very least, the boy has some kind of ability that transforms the physical state of people into something pure. And probably he spends 6 hours using that technique. Man, this guy already figured out a lot, huh? Quick work, you sneaky brat. The doctor's current goal is to get closer to our boy and extract more information. Suddenly, Soso appears and calls for Divine Dr. Dove. Apparently his name is Dove, and says the young master is looking for him. He walks over a bit hesitant, wondering what kind of problem it'll be this time. The hardest part for him in this place is that he still can't figure out how this guy thinks. Back at the usual table, our boy asks if the doctor is as skilled as people say. A bit unsure, the doctor answers that even if it doesn't look like it, he's proud to say he's one of the best in the region. There are probably only 5 people in the whole world who dare say they're better than him. Obviously, Taisen, humble as always, says, that's still way too many people. And Dubby says that no matter how good he gets, he still can't compare to people like the Poison Demon and the immortal of healing. That's when Sueyan asks if the people he's talking about also include the cultist demon, to which he replies yes, the demonic cult has someone who's more skilled than him. But nobody knows exactly who that person is, and it seems they've become even harder to find now, since they tried to go into hiding. Taizin wants to know what exactly the demonic cult is trying so hard to hide. Sueyan just answers, that's the real problem. Everyone wants to know that. What they do know is that he's using some kind of illusion enchantment that separates him from this world, a power that can only be broken if you have the key. Taizin recognizes that technique as the Mystic Sky Enchantment. It's only activated when the leader of the cult dies, and the key to undoing this power is the birth of a new leader. That's because you can't pass through the barrier unless you are the leader yourself. He remembers having killed all the candidates to become the celestial demon in his past life, so unless a new one appears, they won't be able to leave that place. Back in the meeting, he says he's not there to talk about that. He just wants to know if the doctor can reattach a severed limb. The doctor gives a sly smile and says that would be easy. Obviously, it's never the same as someone who never lost their arm, but he can restore a destroyed limb as if it had been cleanly cut. Taizin wants to know which limbs and organs he can do that with, and the doctor replies most limbs and most organs. He can save anyone as long as they were killed instantly. Taizin says that's excellent news and tells him to keep an eye on the training of the other two. The doctor's a bit confused and says he doesn't know anything about martial arts. He spent his whole life studying medicine. But Taizin tells the two of them that now they can train in the perfect way, since they now have someone who can make sure they don't die instantly. They're allowed to cut off each other's limbs, as long as the head stays on. Of course, the two servants immediately understand what he means, and they're standing there trembling, asking for a clearer explanation. Taizin tells them, the way to become stronger is to fight for your life truly. You'll evolve way faster than anyone else if you fight each other like you actually want to kill. The two of them are already shaking, which means they'll have to slice off each other's limbs while the doctor reconnects them afterward. Our boy tells the doctor that his job is to make sure neither of them dies. Kyungwon says it'll be a problem, because if he gets hurt during practice, it'll be harder to protect our boy. But Taizin says not to worry. He's not leaving this place for a whole month starting today. That's the time they have to get strong enough to be able to protect him. The doctor realizes there's no way out for him now and says, they can fight as much as they want. As long as they don't die instantly, I can heal them. Besides that, he's sure this training method will get results. Their abilities will improve tremendously. The doctor's confident this method will work because it started with the celestial demon from long ago. Boom! 1 month has passed already. And guess what? We're back at the Courtson house. In the middle of training, Kyungwon sees an opening and goes to slash Sueyeon in the neck. She barely dodges but still takes a small cut on the cheek. But now that she realizes he's going all in like this, she decides to go in for the kill too, and he hesitates for a second, and she comes at him with a slash that scrapes under his chin. That's when someone claps and says the training's over for today. It's the doctor, saying it's time to apply the healing cream. The two of them are standing there trembling. Clearly, this was way worse than fighting. That's when Kyungwon says he doesn't need something like this. The injuries from today weren't even that serious. But Dubba replies that that's not true. He's covered in wounds all over his body. Even if it hurts a little, this is the most effective way to get them back to training as fast as possible. At that moment, Taizin opens the door and says that this healing medicine is really good. Everyone is startled to see that our boy has arrived. And Dubba wants to know what he's doing there, because our boy responds that he said 30 days ago he would come back after a month. Dubby asks if he's alright, and right away, Taizin stretches out his fist, causing the poor guy to flinch. But of course, our boy just tells him to check his pulse if he's that curious. The second he analyzes it, Dubby's expression changes. He asks how he managed to restore his body like that. What Taizin did was almost obvious. He used the energy he absorbed from the girls at the Courtson house to fix up his wrecked body a bit. The only issue is that in the process, he realized the soul he has now is different from the one he had before. In the past, his energy was violent and destructive. Now it's actually more compact and durable. The problem is that it's extremely hard to control. On the other hand, once he masters it, he'll be capable of creating the perfect body. Back to the present, he tells the doctor to stop purposely making the cream more painful just to make them suffer. Clearly, he's been torturing the two without any real reason. Right then, Kyungwon realizes that all the pain he's been enduring was because of the damn doctor, and says they're going to have a little chat. All scared and off-kilter, Dubby tries to say that his subordinates went through a rough time to get that information, but Taizin just says he's living way too comfortable a life. The doctor, though, poor guy, is suffering, saying it's hard to train those two, keep applying ointments all the time, heal their wounds, and still do everything else. You need to be two people to handle so much. Taizin asks if he's suggesting that he wants to have his body split in half, to which he replies with a crooked face that the joke's not funny. Every time our guy threatens him, he remembers something scary from his past. Taizin finds that strange and wonders if this guy used to belong to the Sacred Demon Clan, a group that existed all over to gather information. Each of its members disguised themselves in cities as bodyguards, merchants, and doctors. W was probably one of those who lived as a doctor. That makes the boy wonder if he might have known or knows about the old life he used to live. Dub then says it's strange that our guy is so interested in the Zhongli clan. Probably the daughter of the Yan mansion must have been stunning. The king of the brothel is thinking that, yeah, she really is beautiful. In a way, she even reminded him of someone from the past. Oh snap, I thought he was going to say something like, but I don't care about her. But nope, that was it. Dudes in love, huh? Dub is asking if they shouldn't add a few more bodyguards, since the Zhongli clan is pretty dangerous. But the protagonist just replies that he's a scared little kitty. Obviously, he wouldn't need anything like that. That Zhongli clan is going to be a piece of cake to deal with. Back when he was the celestial demon and most clans were losing to his sacred clan, only the Zhongli clan ran away. He tried going after them to not let those bastards get away, but when they found them, they had already burned everything and vanished. Now he's eager to see what those bastards' lives are like today. At the Yan mansion, an old man is standing there face to face with our protagonist, eyes wide, saying that apparently Dr. W really is impressive. His body seems to have improved a lot. That man is the master of the Yan mansion, and Heron's father. Tazen says he's still far from regaining the power he once had, but he'll get there eventually. Nothing suspicious about that line, right? Doesn't give off reincarnated vibes at all. Master Yan laughs and says it's been a long time since they've seen each other, and the boy's changed a lot. It's just a shame things have gotten so complicated this time. Seems like the Zhongli clan is really determined to go through with this. They're refusing to acknowledge his marriage to Heron, and on top of that, there are a lot of people on their side. And obviously, if Tazen doesn't accept the humiliation, they'll probably target the Golden Gate merchant group. The protagonist replies that he'll try to settle it, while angrily saying those damned Zhongli never change. They're trying to use his marriage to, in the end, steal both the merchant group and the Yan mansion. Next scene, there's the protagonist group of Black 1, 2, and 3. When he was about to leave the house, someone put a hand on the door. A 3-meter-tall lunatic asked if he was Biup Tazen, and this one's the newest son of the Wong family, known as Wong. Right away, our boy already knew it was him. Then this Wong says he heard that our guy has bad performance in bed. Excuse me? If there's one trait our guy's known for, in a good way, it's that, man. You're way off. But the dude asks if Tazen wants to learn a lesson. Dang, now I just realized it's not Black 1, 2, and 3. It's Wong's group, man, who are ready to throw down. Wong is standing there with that face of a side character who's about to get beat up, asking if our guy wants a private chat. Tazen asks if it's just going to be the two of them, with no one following. Weirdly, Kyungwon suddenly yells that our guy can't just shut down the dude like that. To which Wong laughs, saying that apparently even his bodyguard is pretty arrogant. He was asking for a lesson using his boys. Tazen thanks him, saying that Kyungwon just finished his training recently and a duel would be perfect. Looks like, man, our guy is going with Wong and leaving Kyungwon to handle those guys there. In other words, one's gonna die over there and one's gonna die over here. Those poor guys, probably weaker than Black 1, 2, and 3, draw their swords saying it can be a fight, but if someone dies, it's no problem. Right nearby is Dove, finding this development pretty interesting since those guys were the elite of Zhongli. He's eager to see the result of all that training. But on the other hand, he's gonna stay a bit further away, right? Fighting's not his thing. In another part of the mansion, Wong is in front of the lake and asks if the place isn't decent. Tazen just replies that the guy is quite dedicated. You just arrived and already found a place like that. To which Wong replies that it's only natural, since he's been waiting for this moment for a long time. Tazen might not know, but he's extremely skilled when it comes to inflicting pain. Our boy is standing with arms crossed, sighing, saying he's looking forward to seeing that. But before all that, he just wanted to know if the guy really has any desire to marry Heron. Wong replies yes, she's pretty enough to earn more than one look from him. But that doesn't mean she's the right person to be his partner. His ambitions were way too big for someone who comes from that family and is then he says it's not enough and throws a knife. But the thing hits flat against the tree and he's left there looking dumb, wondering where Tazen is. Yeah, man, look where he is, with his hand on his head and right behind you, saying it's time to find out how far those ambitions go. Yeah, sucker, now you found out that the guy who supposedly had a wrecked body isn't that wrecked after all, right? And in a second, he's already screaming and the sound is echoing through the forest, scaring people far away. Right away, King Wan is sure Tazen must be shut down the poor guy. Strangely, the dude's servants don't even recognize their master's voice, saying that apparently Tazen is the one suffering. But I know. I'm telling them to stop messing around and just attack already. The poor guys raise their swords and say that since they're so eager, they'll help them go to the next life. But when the first one goes for a slash, Kyungwon dodges and kicks him right in the chin. Two others come in from the side, saying that his arrogance would end right there. But as soon as he looked back, bam, something smacked the sucker in the face. A sword sheath rolled in and Suyan told him to come play with her too. Sweethearts, standing side by side like the perfect duo. Both swearing they wouldn't let Tazen down and would show the results of their training. Meanwhile, our guy is stealing all the evil energy. I think, from that sucker Wong, wanting to know where all that arrogance went. But the guy didn't need to worry. Tazen would only extract half his energy, since in this life he doesn't want to kill anyone. He's got amnesia or something. Did he forget he already killed plenty of people? Back at the mansion, obviously the sucker's servant is being shredded up and dropped on the ground like trash. A few seconds later, everyone was kissing the pavement. Suyeon says that for a moment she had her doubts, but they really did it. Kyungwon smiles and says it's thanks to the trust they have in the young master. She, however, finds it strange. It shouldn't be easy for them to defeat warriors from the Zhangli clan. So how did it happen? He says he has no idea, he just knows that if it weren't for Tazen, they'd be the ones on the ground right now. The truth is, before they came to this place, our guy had passed on all the information about how those guys fought. And obviously, it was like he knew every single detail about them. Even though at first he felt unsure, during the fight it became clear that it was extremely easy to predict everything they were going to do. And obviously, that was thanks to the info Tazen gave them. He'd be thinking that the guy is amazing while standing there confused, looking back. Sometime later, W was there singing on the bridge when he looked back and saw Tazen arriving. Our boy wanted to know what he was doing there. He explained, right, that he preferred to stay out of the fight because he wouldn't have been any help. So our boy wanted to know why those guys hadn't dealt with that bunch of trash yet. A bit awkward, W said that that wasn't a bunch of trash. They were the elite warriors of Zhongli. But Tazen Pays replied that from the looks of it, those two still had a lot of training to do. When they got back, they'd be training twice a day. He can't stand people failing around him. W let out a little smirk, right, sneaky? Looks like you're not the one doing the training if all you're doing is thanking them. Sometime later, around the table, Wong was there with the head of the house. Beside him was our dear Rin, who was always blushing. She looked forward and saw Wong's face and lowered her gaze. The father noticed that, glanced to the side, and saw that Wong looked kind of off. He lowered his cup and said he heard the two had a conversation today. Right away, Rin stood up and said she was surprised that Tazen was okay. He, however, asked what she would have done if he wasn't. Before she could answer, he just said yes. They had a very interesting conversation. Something you could say touched their very souls. Wong replied that yes, it's true, it really did shake their souls. Tazen, however, called out to him and said it was rude to talk without looking someone in the eye. The poor guy, all trembling, tried to muster some courage, but standing in front of him was just the captain. One stare from Tazen, and he felt his whole spine get electrocuted and trembled in his seat. The guy merely threw up, stood up, slammed the table, and the food hit the floor. With that, Suyeon helped Heron move away while the others looked confused. Our boy, though, was just smiling, mission accomplished. Sometime later, someone slams the table and asks what the hell is going on. This is the patriarch of the Zhongli clan. The man in front of him tells Master Qian that it seems the bodyguards from that mansion were stronger than expected. They're starting an investigation to see if the Yan mansion helped them in any way. Qian, who's the master, wants to know how Wong is doing in a moment like this. The guy says it looks like he locked himself in a room and refuses to come out at all. He's having some kind of problem with his martial arts, but they can't figure out why. It's almost as if part of his memories were ripped out. Qian puts a hand to his forehead and says the bastard not only got defeated, but also turned into a complete idiot. He's sure it's impossible this is Tazen's doing, since that guy's super weak and was about to die. There must be someone else behind all of this, and things are getting weird. He tells them to find out who's involved in this situation no matter what. The guy just nods and says he'll be taking his leave. While looking out the window, he says they're finally reviving this clan that was nearly wiped out. In a time like this, they can't afford humiliations like that. He swears he'll crush anyone who dares mess with the Zhongli clan, even if it's the celestial demon. Back at the Yang mansion, a group walks through the door. Right away, Kyungwon gets a feeling that trouble's coming. He warns our boy, who just wants to know if they're there for revenge. Kyungwon says he's not sure, but it looked like there were some martial arts masters among them. Tazen wants to know how he's so sure there was a master in the group. The guy explains there was an old man with a sword who clearly wasn't bothering to hide his presence. Our boy laughs and says they really never change. They love to show off and only ever learn after a good beating. He says it's time, and Kyungwon thinks they're heading to face those guys. But Tazen says no, he's got other things to take care of. Confused, his friend asks where they're going, since the matters at the mansion weren't resolved yet. Tazen says not to worry, they've got plenty to deal with thanks to the fool who peed himself. Meanwhile, they should just follow him. He goes ahead saying that finally things were starting to get interesting. By the end of the afternoon, they were arriving at the Blood Axe sect. The demon smiles, saying that they were actually bigger than he expected. Obviously, his friend wants to know what he's planning to do there. This was one of the strongest unorthodox factions in the whole city. They do give money to the Zhongli clan behind the scenes, but no one really knows why. Tazen says he's sure those guys don't like Zhongli, so if they're giving them money, it's definitely not by choice. Kyungwon replies that it's probably because they're not strong enough, and that's something normal in this world. Tazen answers that it's not just that they're weak and not fighting back, they're paying those tributes because they know resisting is useless. And he asks if Kyungwon knows what happens to people like that. Kyungwon glances over, and our guy says that all of them lose the will to live. At that, his friend flinches and remembers the old city burning. His father yelling at a servant to get the boy out of there and go as far away as possible. A young Kyung-won looks back and sees his father, saying he hopes at least he survives from the family. But that's when someone lands a hit on his back and says that apparently one managed to escape. Looking back, he sees the Blood Phoenix demon and asks why they're there. Before the guy can answer, he's already on his knees, saying that his family is innocent and begging him, at the very least, to spare his child. He grabs the demon's feet and pleads. But the Blood Phoenix demon says that one day that son will come looking for him, seeking revenge for his father. So in other words, the two of them were destined to meet again someday. And when that day comes, it'll be hard for him to accept that same plea again. And with that, he kills the father, right? But apparently, he let Kyung-won escape. And now he seems to understand that what Taesin said, being weak is the greatest sin. He gets goosebumps and asks, though, what are the weak supposed to do then? Our guy smiles, puts his hand on the door, and says he'll give them strength. Obviously, as soon as the door opens, the guys inside are shouting that intruders are coming. But just moments later, the chief and his whole group are already wrecked. Taesin approaches the leader, Chu Jagwine, who's already screaming and begging for his life, saying they really made some serious mistakes. He's already banging his head on the floor, saying he'll obey anything Taesin says. But Taesin just smiles and asks him to calm down, explaining that he's only there to teach something really interesting and wants to see how useful they'll be. Before the leader can even understand, he's told that in exchange for what he's going to learn, all of them will be killed if they ever pay another tribute to the Zhongli house. The leader's got tears in his eyes, saying that if they go pay Zhongli, they'll die anyway. So nothing's changed. A few days later, over at the Zhongli mansion, someone's yelling so loud it scares away the birds, wanting to know why the Blood Axe doesn't want to pay tributes anymore. It's a servant informing the king, who slams the table, asking if those idiots think they'll just accept something like that. The guy, though, says something feels off. The people over there seem way too confident. The boss says they're probably just hiring some second-rate martial artists to help out, but they'll handle it. The elder says fine then and asks if they can send the soldier's corpse over to deal with him. The problem for the boss is that lately they've been having some money issues. They can't afford to lose the funds those guys were paying, so he orders them to send a guy named Zhang Sungrak and the group of warriors. The guy says he's heading out to call them now while the leader is fuming. One week, a sucker comes back humiliated with his pants soaked, and the next week, these guys suddenly don't want to pay their tributes. For some unknown reason, things seem to be going wrong for them. Only Sherlock Holmes could figure out who's behind all this. Look at those two walking through the city right now. They definitely couldn't have anything to do with all of this, right? Kyung-won is asking if this is really going to work. For sure, those guys are going to pay the price for not paying the tribute. Not to mention that Zhongli won't be happy that they're walking around exposing their weaknesses. Taesin, though, tells him not to worry. Their finances are completely frozen, and they won't have time to care about the two of them. Even so, this friend insists, saying it's madness. If they get attacked by the warrior groups, they'll probably lose even with the tips. That's when Taesin says that's exactly why they're going to meet some people who can handle those guys. When he looks to the side, our boy is already walking into Dongwoo's bodyguard agency. The poor guy's kind of confused, but it's pretty obvious he's probably going to hire some bodyguards. That's what you can do in a place like this. As soon as he goes up the stairs, a guy asks why he's there, and our boy already says he's there to see the owner. The poor little soldier tries to say not just anyone can meet the owner, but Taesin immediately asks if by any chance he is just anyone. Dang, just like your mom, right? When you say, but mom, everyone's going to the party, and she replies, you're not everyone, you're not going. And then you're just left there looking like a fool. He just walks right in, man, and the guard clearly didn't want to get involved. Smart move. He just stood there watching the two of them enter. Sometime later, in front of a door, the guy says to wait there, and the boss is on his way. But to announce him, he needs to know who's requesting the meeting. Taesin asks him to wait and says he hasn't remembered everything yet. He leans against the wall while everyone watches patiently. The old man is starting to lose patience, but just when he's about to say something, our boy cuts in. He tells him to go to the man and say he has something to deliver called the Mystic Moon. The poor worker's just standing there with no clue what this lunatic is talking about. They're all just standing there when Kyung-won glances over and asks what this Mystic Moon business is about. Then suddenly, the door swings open and an old man shows up. The guy drops to his knees right away, introduces himself as the owner of the shop, and pays his respects. That rascal Taesin just smiles and walks ahead, while the assistant's obviously just standing there like, what the hell is going on? Why did this Mystic Moon thing get that old man so hyped up? Next scene, Taesin is already in the chair wanting to know how many people the guy can mobilize. The old man replies, 6 main warriors and 60 bodyguards. Taesin tells him to gather everyone, but keep the main ones separate. He needs to talk to them first. The old man simply agrees, and there's our boy passing on some information to the suckers. But Kyung-won has no idea what our guy's up to. Even though they're skilled bodyguards, they're far from being able to beat someone trained by the Zhongli clan. Still, there's our guy explaining everything and saying they're going to support the unorthodox faction. The masked guys say okay, and our guy says they'll now go with them. Kyung-won wants to know what they'll be helping, But our guy says no, they'll just go along, but the others are the ones who will fight. Even so, the friend says it'd be better if he helped, just so the guys don't lose. Taizan laughs and asks if he win against the owner of that place. Kyungwon answers that the old man's kind of worn out and probably, even if he were a master, he's at the same level as him. But he's sure he's more skilled than those master bodyguards. Taizan, however, says he's seriously deluded and completely wrong. He's nowhere near strong enough to fight the master bodyguards. And beyond that, the boss of that place is way stronger than he imagined, and he has to learn to respect things he can't see. Poor Kyungwon doesn't understand anything, right, man? But the truth is that Taizan knows this because those guys are members of the sacred demon cult. In other words, yeah, this is the cult he trained those guys in. And it seems like he's been able to track down a few members thanks to Dubby's investigation. And it doesn't even matter if they don't know who he really is. If the Mystic Moon is mentioned, they're forced to submit. Wait, so if I show up saying Mystic Moon too, will they obey me? How does this even work? In other words, it explains that these guys are working at a security agency because actually they're way too powerful, and this is just a way to hide their strength. Obviously, his friend wants to know, right? When exactly he made all these connections. To which Taizan replies that children can't know everything in this world. But now it was time to go because he could finally train in a real fight. Obviously, once again, the poor guy is confused. Our boy had just said a minute ago that they wouldn't be joining the fight, but Taizan says he would never say something like that. Obviously, they were going to kill the leader of those guys. Back at the Blood Axe sect, the Zhongli elder, Sungrak, is the one who arrived at their place. And Jagwang, the leader of the Blood Axe, is saying they're not going to put up with Zhongli giving orders anymore. Sungrak, though, asks if he's gone insane or actually thinks he can win. The chief starts yelling like a madman, saying he's not insane. Actually, what they've been trying to do is stay sane, and he warns that they'd rather take a beating and crap their pants. Sungrak hears that and already suspects that whoever was behind what happened to Wang is also behind this, since apparently back when the guy stood up at the table, he didn't just pee himself. I thought he had puked, then I realized he had peed. Now we find out he crapped himself. So the guy let everything out. Suddenly, the old man senses a strange energy, turns to the others and tells them to handle the people inside, and to keep one alive since he had a few questions to ask. He starts leaving the place, feeling something was off. He had taken part in countless battles, but he had never felt something like this. Every fiber of his body was screaming that he was in danger at that moment. Oh boy, look over there. Taizan and the other one are in the tree. You really are in danger, man. That's when our boy says he really does have sharp senses. When the old man looks back, our boy had already dropped down and says that honestly, he does seem strong. Imother Zhongli is kind of a garbage clan, at least their elders maintain some standards. The elder then says he must be Taizan and asks if he's the one behind all this. But our humble boy says there's no point in saying, since his memory won't last much longer anyway. The old man says fine then, he really is bold for a pup. But as soon as he loses 1 or 2 limbs, he'll start talking. But Kyungwon steps forward and says the old man won't even get the chance to fight Taizan. Looking at the boy, Sungrak thinks he doesn't seem all that strong. Besides, there's no way that powerful energy came from the guy behind him. He thinks there must be someone else hiding around who decides to just deal with the two of them quickly. He draws his sword, saying this is going to be quick. Taizan laughs and asks Kyungwon how long he thinks he'll last in the fight. The poor guy is shaking, hand on his sword, saying that this damned elder has a terrifying aura. He didn't expect him to be this strong, but at the very least he's going to give it his all. Our boy says this is a moment of luck. The fastest way to evolve is by fighting someone stronger than you. The old man is tired of the two of them chatting like he's some practice dummy and says he'll end this now. He steps in for a strike, saying this will be over in an instant, but Kyungwon blocks the first attack. The old man pulls back, surprised, and says he's not bad, actually. He comes in again and Kyungwon dodges again, but gets thrown back with his arms shaking. At least now he was more confident since he could see the path of the attacks. He charges again and the two face off. The elder comes down for an overhead slash, telling him to understand that he's nothing more than a mere bodyguard. The guy blocks it again, but the sword got a crack in it. Clearly this wasn't going to last long at that pace, just from the force of the impacts. While the old man keeps delivering a barrage of strikes, he asks if Kyungwon really thinks he has any chance. Kyungwon is sure that if he takes even one of those hits in the wrong place, he's going to be sliced in half. Suddenly, Sungrak starts gathering a sphere of energy in his hand. He slams it into his own chest, saying he wants to see if Kyungwon can survive this. The poor guy is sent flying and has to use his sword in the ground to stay upright. And the old man is surprised to see that the bastard didn't fall completely. He's still on his knees. And once again, Kyungwon calms down. As terrifying as the guy is, he can still see the attacks. Taizan praises him, telling him to appreciate the results of all the training he's gone through. Now Sungrak is starting to get scared. He doesn't remember anyone in those bastards' family being able to block one of his attacks like that. He then says he admits that for a bodyguard, Kyungwon has way too much skill. It's a waste for someone like him to be in a guild like that. The best path for him in this life would be to join the Zhongli clan. He throws a glance at Tezin and tells Kyungwon that if he comes to the Zhongli group, he'll learn real martial arts. He's way too talented to be cleaning up the messes of that kid. But Kyungwon just laughs and asks what mess he's supposedly cleaning up for the boy. He also tells the old man that the abilities he's seen so far don't even come close to what Tezin can do. He grabs his sword again and jumps in, saying he wants to see everything he's got. Sungrak replies that he'll stay an arrogant bastard till the end. The guy comes in with an overhead slash. But this time, the old geezer managed to dodge the sword and drove his own into Kyungwon's shoulder. Yep, poor guy staggered back and this time actually dropped to the ground totally exhausted. His arm looked like it was almost disconnected. And of course, it's the one he uses to hold the sword. Even so, Sungrak is disappointed. He had aimed for the head, not the arm. But in the end, the bastard still managed to read his sword's path. The poor guy's suffering, and the old man says it's time to finish this. But Kyungwon, fired up, says he's not going to let that happen. That's when Tezin says, enough. The fool turns and says he wants to keep going. But Tezin tells him to look at his arm. He wasn't even going to be able to hold a sword properly anymore, so he should give up. But he gives him a little smile and says he wasn't so bad. He slowly walks closer and tells him to watch carefully and not miss a single detail. Oh boy, this one thinks he's that guy from the arena fight. Huh, cocky. The old man says he heard Tezin was on the verge of death, so it's crazy for him to want a sword fight now. Tezin, however, says he doesn't need a sword to beat someone like him. Obviously, the old man isn't happy with that and says the first thing he's going to cut is his tongue. Tezin tells him to just come already, and the old man's a bit confused. Looking at the boy, he can't see anything special about him. So why is he so confident and cocky? He starts thinking maybe he's hiding something, it might be a bluff. Surely he's just worrying for nothing. He goes in for the strike, convinced there's no way this guy can stop the blow. He pulls off a crazy inverted attack, tosses the sword up to come back down, and he's sure this is a kill shot. Clearly, the kid was an idiot for thinking he could win without even using a sword. But our boy just takes a tiny step to the side, smiling. The old man's trying to figure out when he got that close, and Tezin says he told him he doesn't need a sword. He lands a clean strike on the old man, who obviously hits the ground immediately. His vision starts going blurry as he wonders who the hell this bastard is. Poor Kyungwon is just standing there, speechless. He struggled like hell against that old man, and he still couldn't understand how Tezin won so easily. If he wanted revenge, he at least need to move the way he does. Back at the Yan clan mansion, W is looking at him saying he's in really bad shape. Kyungwon's just there, right, with not much to say in response. And the doctor warns that if it hadn't been him, any other doctor would have cut the arm off, since restoring something like that would have been impossible. Kyungwon doesn't say anything and W starts bragging, saying he better always remember how great it is to have an amazing doctor like him around. Kyungwon tilts his head, thanking him, while the doctor says he likes humans because they're animals that know how to recognize kindness. Sueyam thanks him, saying they already thanked him 19 times, so maybe that's enough. But the doctor says that's just to make sure they don't forget how kind he is in the future. The two of them thank him again. Dubba then glances to the side and sees Tezin arriving. He says he's shown up at the perfect time and asks if he heard about the big offer he got. He was about to say something about being offered some herbs, when suddenly Tezin gives him a look, and he immediately turns away, asking why he looks so scary today. Our boy tells him to leave if he wants. Dubby is a little confused, wondering where he's supposed to go. Our boy says if he wants to go with the Zhongli clan and just go already. Dubby starts to say something about how our boy is the only one he wants to serve, but Tezin just tells him to shut it, and warns him, either go join the Zhongli clan or go deal with the mountain bandits. Kyungwon then explains that at least now the Zhongli guys will be occupied for a while. But Art Moy says, unfortunately, that's not how it's going to be. Now that they're completely cornered, their only chance is to come at them with everything they've got. But that wasn't the most important part. These guys shouldn't even have the guts to act this boldly, which means someone is behind all this. And first, they need to figure out who's pulling Zhongli's strings. He asked if Dubby found what he asked for, and Dubby says he is. It took him 3 days and all his subordinates to find it. Tezin smiles and says to hand it over already. He wants to know who's controlling Zhongli in this era. Scene cuts to the Zhongli clan. A woman walks through the corridor in heels and everyone bows to her. One of them announces that someone from the White Flower Courtesan house is there. The Zhongli patriarch says to let her in immediately, and as soon as he sees her, he's already trembling. Oh boy, she's way too beautiful for the artist to be hiding her for 16 panels. She's there stroking the furniture, saying she heard that one of the elders died last night. She wants to know if he was really killed by a merchant's son. Sheenan, however, explains that there were extremely skilled people with that guy, but they don't mean to worry, soon he'll take care of it all. The woman, though, says no deal. The women of the White Flower Courtesan house are going to handle Tezin themselves. Whoa, if there's one group our boy has experience dealing with, it's the Courtesans, right? I don't know if her plan's gonna work. The boss is a bit nervous, but she tells him not to worry. Very soon he'll end up paying her a visit, since they're spreading a rumor to lure him in. He wants to know what rumor that is, and she says it's that they're allied with the Golden Celestial Alliance. Man, the artist really was hiding this little model from us, huh? Too bad we already know. Either she's gonna die to our boy, or, well, I think she will. Is he going to kill a woman? Now I'm curious. Is he that kind of guy? The next day, our boy is telling them not to follow if they're going to keep acting like this. W asks if they should leave Kyungwon behind, but Kyungwon says no way. He's full of energy. W says that at this rate, they're going to get caught before even accomplishing anything, so it'd be better to use poison. They ask, what kind of poison? He says it's something that basically changes your facial expression since it relaxes your face completely. The poor guy, though, in the middle of the explanation, is once again the poor guy when it comes to Taesun, who just tells them to hurry up. Still, W insists that at the very least, they should use the poison on Kyungwon, since he was drawing too much attention. Taesun starts wondering if he's really surrounding himself with decent people. And with that, Kyungwon is just left standing there with a dumb look on his face. Sometime later, they arrive at the White Flower Courtson House people. Our boy has arrived in his natural habitat, and Suyeon is devastated that he's going back to his old habits. Dove, however, tells her to take a closer look. That wasn't just any place, it was a Courtson house backed by the Golden Celestial Alliance. She finds it strange that guys like them are getting involved in a place like this. Dove explains that these people are constantly expanding their locations to gather as much information as possible. You could easily tell just by looking at the soldiers outside. They looked like regular people, but they were extremely skilled. Taesun suddenly points out that the rumors about this place only started recently, which suggests they're trying to attract a specific person. W agrees and says it makes total sense. Suyeon, on the other hand, says that if they're trying to lure someone, maybe they shouldn't be going there, because, you know, it could be a trap. The doctor asks if she's feeling sorry for Taesun, and she replies, hell no. And so the Fantastic Four entered the building. The first one appears, welcoming them, saying the girls there were wondering when the Night King of Wuhan would finally visit them. Double laughs and says that apparently the rumor has been spreading a lot. He pushes the girl aside and tells her to bring the best they got. Meanwhile, Taesun is just observing that the guards here aren't bad at all. They could go toe-to-toe with warriors from respected clans. If this alliance has warriors like this around, that clearly means there's an even bigger group behind all of this. What he wants to figure out is what they're actually planning. At that moment, the woman from the house appears, saying his room and companion were already prepared. Double thought he was gonna get out of it, man. But Suyeon said he was staying there with them. He tried to say no, but she just ordered a guard to take the guy in. And there he was, sitting on the bench, thinking, really? I'm gonna have to stay in a place like this. Kyungwon, on the other hand, already knew what was coming. Then Suyeon asked what happened. He didn't look too good. All twisted up, he replies that he's fine, she doesn't need to worry. But he's saying that the poison he took is wearing off, and it looks like it's causing some side effects. Strangely, from his perspective, he sees Suyeon asking if he wants to meet a fourth too. He shouts back, telling her not to worry, he's fine. She seems confused by the reaction, but once again, from his POV, she says she's going to take a closer look. And the guy's already smacking his head into the wall. Seeing Dubba's little smirk, he's sure that bastard knew about the side effect. With his forehead bleeding, he says not to worry. It's all resolved. Suddenly, everyone almost draws their swords when someone says that Master Taesun doesn't seem to be around. It's the Zhongli administrator known as Momwang. And yep, along with him, obviously, comes a squad. W asks if the Zhongli warriors are allied with the people from this place. Momwang responds that it's a shame, but since he noticed that no one there could be allowed to leave alive, he gives the order to go after them. But the one who charges in first is Kyungwon, saying it's been hard to stay focused, so the fight would be good for distraction. The first two already take a hit and drop to the ground. Suyeon asks what he's been trying so hard to hold back. The poor guy, a bit embarrassed, says he'll explain later. Then two come at her, but easily she also takes them down with one hit to the neck each. While the fight is going on, our boy is sitting there, turned to the next victim. The poor girl tells him to come closer, that it's going to be fun. But he replies that it sounded kind of noisy outside. She asks what he means by that. He says it was the sound of a fight going on. She pretended to be clueless and said maybe his hearing was off because she wasn't hearing anything. But the damn woman was thinking to herself that of course there was a fight going on. This was the beginning of his end today. She was feeling a bit sad, thinking it was a shame he was going to die like that without even realizing what was going on, since at least he was kinda cute. Then suddenly, Taesun asks if she wants to have both her eyes ripped out. Did he look like some prey that got caught? The fool was all confused, wondering what he was talking about. But he answers that she must be thinking he showed up there without knowing anything. In the blink of an eye, he punches the wall and tells her to never look at him like that again. Meanwhile, Suyeon and Kyungwon are outside having a good time. Another one comes at him from behind, but he dodges. At the same time, Suyeon shows up behind him to help, pushes him back into the fight and slices through one more enemy. Then she comes from the side and cuts the shoulder of another guy. And a few moments later, everyone's lying on the floor. The two of them are exhausted, and that's when Mom Wang says they really are just a bunch of useless idiots. Man pulls out a little fruit peeling knife and says he'll have to handle this himself. Obviously, they're confused. Who pulls out a paring knife in a fight like this? But suddenly, the lunatic launches himself at them. They raise their swords, realizing he was way too fast. But the old man just ducked low and slipped past clean. I thought he was going to stab both of them right there. But actually, he threw out a flurry of attacks. The two managed to defend, but not perfectly. They were getting cut here and there across the face. The suckers had to retreat, and Kyungwon wondered if fighting a master was just too much for the two of them. Moon Wang says they're skilled, but they're dreaming if they think they can beat an elder. Even if they're talented, it would be disgraceful for the clan if he lost here. But right at that moment, boom, the wall behind them explodes. The gang already knows what's coming, right? Bodies drop to the ground, and Taizan appears. Moon Wang recognizes him instantly and says he can't believe it. Last he heard, Taizan was the name of a guy with a wrecked body. Looks like he'd been hiding his strength for a long time. The protagonist says he'd never do something like that. People just see what they're capable of seeing. The old man says, all right then. He was going to spare the kid's life, but now he's changed his mind. Our boy grins. Moon Wang pulls out knives and gets ready. He throws 3 at Taizan, who easily dodges them. The guy behind the door almost got hit though. Taizan says the old man's shaking way too much for someone talking about sparing lives. He starts walking toward him, saying he knows the guy won't have the answers he wants anyway. So hey, he grabs the guy's little hat and says they'll just move on to the fun part. The old guy didn't even realize he'd gotten so close. And there goes Taizan, absorbing all the man's energy. A little while later, Nova shows up smiling, and Kyungwon celebrates that at least he didn't get attacked. He says not to worry. When it comes to hiding well during fights, you can count on him. Then Taizan finishes up and lets go of the old man, and everyone leaves the courts and house. Apparently, it's the first time Taizan left one of these places before sunrise. Oh wait, scratch that. They're already beating up other guys and heading to a different area of the region. The lady is confused, wanting to know who exactly they're looking for. Dub explains that it's obviously the people behind all of these incidents. Whoa, look who's in the middle of the next room, the next target. Taizan enters. She glances it over and he immediately asks if she is the one. She better not even think about claiming the course and house had nothing to do with it. The woman replies she'd never lie like that. She values her life. The protagonist then asks why she's so calm if she really values her life that much. The woman says she's confident and that she's more useful alive than dead. He replies that he wants to know a few things. And then she says she'll tell him everything. Obviously, our boy tells her to say who's behind all of this. He doesn't want names from the Celestial Alliance. He wants the identity of whoever's behind them. They stare at each other for a second, and she lowers her head, saying she doesn't know the identities of the 3 people behind it. They move in extremely deceitful ways and are always hidden. The only thing she can say is the name of the person who receives orders from them, someone called Bong Mook. Dubby seems startled by the name, and Taizan asks if the guy is famous. He explains that yes, he was one of the strongest sword masters, known as the Flame General, but as far as he knows, the guy died a long time ago. He tells the woman that apparently the guy is dead, but she insists, saying she's sure it was Bong Mook. He asks if she has the guts to swear on her own soul. She says yes. Then she says fine. From now on, she'll take over that place. She's used every means possible to gather information about the Alliance, this Mook guy, and report it to him. She lowers her head and says that unfortunately, it'll be hard to get any more information. But he tells her to stop pretending. He knows very well she was hired by the Golden Alliance since she belongs to the Hao faction. Looks like it's true, right? Because now she's got that scared look on her face. And he leaves, saying that for someone from the Hao faction, she's terrible at lying. Dove is surprised they're leaving already, but our boy says he trusts she'll do a great job. However, he stops midway and says he knows the location of the Shadow Step manual. That seriously sounds like some lost Naruto jutsu. And the woman's shocked, because that's a technique from the Hao clan, one that was lost decades ago. Only our Brabin Ho, the little reincarnated one, would know something like that. Of course she doesn't figure that out, but she says she'll follow his orders. Sometime later, on a mountain. Yeah, looks like it really was the first time Taizan went to a courtson house and made it back before sunrise. A man is walking across a bridge. Oh, probably that Bong Mook guy, right? He runs into some pump with yellow or red hair. Looks like a villain, who asks what the problem is. He explains that the situation in Wuhan isn't looking good. The Zhongle group and the White Flower courtesan house were both defeated by an unknown person. The guy wants to know how it's possible they don't have intel on something that big. Then this kid lying on a bench says that the brother can't even control something that simple. And the buff, dark-skinned guy says they need to take this seriously. Wuhan was a crucial part of their plan. The standing brother agrees, saying they waited hundreds of years and can't allow a failure like this. Very soon, the Unknown Ones will appear in the world. Honestly though, Unknown Ones is a pretty lame name, guys. Gall could have come up with something better. But now we're back at the bodyguard agency. Dub is talking with the old man, who asks if he isn't breaking any rules by meeting with him like this. But Dubba replies that he's in a very special situation. At that moment, the old man understands that he's talking about the mystic enchantment. And the thing is, no one knows how long it'll take, but the Supreme One is going to appear soon. Dubby says that since they're already talking about the Supreme's appearance, they should start preparing, and asks what the old man thinks of Master Biaf Tazen. The old man says he's definitely suspicious. He used the secret code that only high-ranking people know, but he doesn't know of any executive that young. Even he himself is curious about who this person really is. Dubby glances to the side and says he thinks it's the Supreme's secret son who was believed to be dead. Wait a second. He's starting to think the protagonist is the son of the previous Supreme who had a secret family? Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The old man is basically drooling and asks if Dubby is being serious, to which Dubby tells him to keep quiet, someone might hear. He says maybe the new Supreme is going to appear sooner than they thought, even though that's what the doctor told the old man. The truth is, not even he knows for sure. Who exactly is Tazen? Back at the house, looking at him as always, that boy didn't say much. Suddenly, his spirit says that that person is finally coming. He asks who she's talking about, and she says it's the famous eccentric Neil. Dubby is startled for a second, and then gets spooked. Soso comments that it's no wonder the eccentric needle is admired by all doctors. Soso says that even though Delva helped our boy a lot, she's curious how much this needle guy is going to be able to help him. Poor doctor says he's more than enough by himself. She tries to defend the new guy's arrival, saying he became famous because he can cure any illness with a single needle. They start arguing, until our boy cuts in and says no, that guy didn't become famous for healing people. The truth is, he became famous because he can kill someone with a single needle. The first time he was talked about worldwide was when he destroyed an entire sect using just that. Soso says that's impossible. She's never heard that story. Also, why would a doctor kill that many people? He just replies that the world must be a pretty sweet place when you're that innocent. The poor girl scolds him, but he just walks away. Sometime later in the middle of the city, someone is walking by and catching everyone's attention. Oh, I thought it was someone important, but it's Danyang, right? Our first courtesan brought to the house. They were picking some apples when they saw an old man yelling at someone, saying he wasn't going to fall for some dumb trick like that. Behind him, there's a group of bandits, or so it seemed, and apparently he was being scammed with the old cup trick. The con artist, who is definitely a master of swindling, says he can't be accused unfairly just because the guy lost. He's been running that shop for 15 years, and if he were cheating, he'd have been killed long ago. The old guy goes silent while the scammer starts grabbing all the money. Suddenly, the old man says he wants one last bet. If he guesses where the coin is, he gets all the gold. But if not, he loses a hand. Now the guy's nervous, while the old man's got the face of a total psycho. Okay, I was mean. I assumed everyone in the city was a bandit, but looks like it's just a regular citizen calling the whole thing shady. Nobody ever wins. Even Danyang is getting involved now, curious to see what happens. But of course, the scammer says he'd never accept a stupid bet like that. They keep arguing, until suddenly, it's Danyang standing nearby. Here comes another guy completely stunned by that pure physical form. I guess that's the polite way of complimenting women, right? Instead of saying, she's hot, you say, wow, what a refined, pure physical form. And as soon as she starts walking, the guy throws the money in the scammer's face and runs after her, all excited because he just found something very interesting. In front of the golden wall gate, he's sure she went that way. And bam, he opens the door like he owns the place. The old man at the entrance welcomes him and says it's great to have a guest like him. The guy goes straight to the point, saying he saw a woman go in that direction and wants to know where she went. If I'm not wrong, that old guy is Mujin, right folks? There are so many names now, it's getting hard to keep up. Mujin says that if she was the last to enter, then it's Danyang who serves Master Dazang. The guy is confused, she's just a servant. Mujin hints that he better not even think about trying to take her as a disciple. Even the Dr. Dava once tried something and ended up becoming a servant here in the region too. Looks like that old man must be the so-called Needles, right? Because he says not to compare him to trash like Dava. Sitting behind a table is our boy, and Dava's next to him with an annoyed expression. Right away, eccentric Needles recognizes him, thinking he was way younger than expected. Our guy then says he finds it weird how everyone who comes to this place ends up getting interested in his maids. Needles is angry that the boy spoke to him so casually, and just says the girl's energy was impressive. Her talent was being wasted in that place, and if she trained with him for 10 years, she'd become an incredible doctor. Tezen, though, says the guy doesn't even look that skilled. So what exactly would he teach her? Obviously, that eccentric Needles dude loses his mind immediately, but then suddenly, something approaches. He instantly feels a chill and closes his eyes. When he opens them, it's just our boy asking him to check his pulse. He wants to see just how talented this guy really is. That Needles guy, man, looks like a bit of a fraud, huh? This big martial arts artist is now trembling from just a glance. He's wondering how this kid made him feel breathless for a moment. Tazen tells him to hurry up and check already, and the guy obeys. because he knows if the kid had a sword in his hand, he'd be dead by now. The problem is, he can't even feel the energy coming from him. So how's that even possible? But the moment he touches the pulse, his expression changes. He says that the boy's body really is a mess. Taizin answers, "That's obvious. What I want to know is how long it's going to take to fix it." And man, the guy delivers some bad news. He says it would take so long to fix Taizin's body that he'd be better off living a quiet, normal life. Taizin laughs, looks over at Dubby and says, "Well, since this guy's saying that, you can now consider yourself better than him." Needles says not to lie, but our boy replies that Dubby had already warned him it would take a few years to recover. Now he wants to know, if Needles doesn't have martial skills or healing skills, why is he even famous? After a moment of silence, he says fine. He wants to make a bet. Our boy's already interested and tells him to go on. Needles says he'll prove his martial arts aren't weak by fighting someone, but if he wins, he gets all the maids from that place. Taizin says okay, but what does he get out of it? Needles says he's wagering himself. There's no better deal in the world than that. Even the biggest alliances are fighting to recruit him. Yeah man, too bad you're talking to the protagonist, you're going to lose. And our boy still says he doesn't just want the guy's body, that he's going to wager something that has to be his soul too. Needles turns and asks if he means full loyalty, and he promises it. With a little grin, they are now standing in the arena. Needles wants to know who he'll be fighting, and strangely Taizin says, it's him. Ah, now I get it. When the guy said it couldn't be Taizin, it wasn't out of fear. He just thought that with a body in that bad of a state, there was no way he'd stand a chance. And now he's there with that idiot look on his face, asking if Taizin plans on losing. To which Taizin tells him to figure out for himself. Needles studies him, trying to understand what he's planning. Based on the pulse analysis he did, it should be hard for Taizin to even stand and walk. He seems to come to the conclusion that Taizin wants to die. He tells him not to throw his life away like this. There's still so much to come. Dubba starts talking a bunch, and our boy wonders why every doctor talks so damn much. He tells them both to shut up, and asks if Needles is hesitating so much because he's afraid of losing. Tired of it, the guy says fine, but don't blame him if the kid dies. Taizin tells him to come at him with everything he's got. That's when Needles gets ready. He's sure the kid is just testing his patience, but there's no way he's going to lose like that. He starts pulling out a few needles from a jar, warning that he'd never lower his guard in a wager like this. Then he begins moving and throws a few needles to create a distraction. He shifts to the side and draws 3 more that are aimed directly at one of Taizin's vital points. He throws a bunch with each hand, saying it's impossible for anyone to dodge that. But the needles completely miss and he's left confused. The protagonist asks if that was the little trick he had up his sleeve. The guy's about to draw more needles, but Taizin says that's enough. The old man feels the boy's presence, but in the blink of an eye, Taizin disappears and reappears right in front of him. He pretends to aim for his chest, which forces the guy to guard. But all he does is sweep his legs out from under him. The guy loses balance and ends up getting pushed out of the arena. The shove looked light, but the wall behind him exploded. And the worst part? His own needles were stuck in his chest. Weirdly, he gets back up, saying he doesn't know what kind of magic that was, but he won't miss this time. Our boy says, yep, looks like the bastard won't admit defeat unless he's dead. Taizin starts flickering around like a shadow, and Needles tells himself he'll now focus a ton of energy into his eyes. That way, it'll be impossible to get tricked by that technique again. But in a second, Taizin's already at his back, saying the guy really is just as bad a martial artist as he thought. The sound of a bone cracking under the moonlight. Sometime later, the guy opens his eyes to see Dubba smiling, asking if he's finally awake. After that hit to the head, he blacked out and stayed down for a while. Dubba lets him know he's under a few precautions in case he thought about running. Needles gets up all crooked, asking what this restriction thing is supposed to mean. To which Dubba replies with the obvious. From now on, he belongs to Taizin. The old man puts his hand on his head and says, all right, I've never been this speechless before. Dubba says he's excited to work with the legendary eccentric Needle. The next day, our boy went to visit his brother. The protagonist's name is Taizin, and the brother's name is Tetsu, just so we don't get confused. Actually, to really avoid confusion, let's just keep calling him the protagonist's brother. That's easier. And the brother says he's looking way better. Looks like the visit from eccentric Needle and the divine doctor really helped the kid. Our boy doesn't say anything. The brother then says he called him over to ask a favor. Looks like the Marshall Lake Alliance had already sent their reps and Miss Yeon had been invited. Man, no way they're going after that wife of his, Yeon Heron. Again, right? She's one sought-after woman, huh? The brother explains that the merchants from his group can't participate, but since both she, his supposed fiancé, and eccentric Needle got invitations, he wants our boy to go with them. Taizin kind of already guessed that request. But yeah, it was obvious. And he says there's no reason not to go. It'll even be a good chance for that guy to get some training in. The brother, however, warns him to be careful. The River Marshal Alliance was one of the most dangerous in Hebei, but on the other hand, it's because they're so powerful that this is an opportunity you can't miss. Taizin says it's the perfect chance. It's been a while since he's found any good opponents to train against. Meanwhile, over at the White Flower Courtson house. Man, I still don't remember the name of that white-haired lady. Don't even know if they said it. Probably did, but I forgot. She's asking for new intel, but the girl next to her says unfortunately. The group's hesitating to make any move against the merchant faction. The silver-haired lady says obviously. Nobody expected a monster like that to show up. She's got a faint blush under her eyes, clearly wondering who this guy is and how he knows all that information. Then she orders all the girls to keep an eye on the merchant group from the Golden Wall. She wants to know what martial arts they possess and what relics they've bought. Also, they were to be extremely cautious as if dealing with a highly dangerous clan, and none of them were to even think about getting close to the second master, Tazen. Ah, look at you, working for our boy and trying to spy on him, huh? You're kinda asking to have your soul drained, aren't you? Next chapter, we see a message Soso sent to her mom asking if she's doing okay. In the message, she says she's fine and that they're getting ready to visit the River Marshal Group, an extremely powerful alliance, and that proves just how important Master Tazen really is. On top of that, 2 famous doctors had recently joined them. Seeing all this happen was fascinating for her. The only weird thing was that at night, she kept hearing some strange screams. When she looked out the window, she could see some kind of peculiar training going on. Since it started, Tazen's been looking healthier and healthier. Even the 2 doctors are looking younger by the day. Out of nowhere, Tazen says that doctors like him are way better than Courtsons. Soso turns red, wanting to know what he meant by that. It was peculiar, to say the least. The poor guy though just ends up embarrassed and doesn't say a word about it. Even so, she really liked that place, because lately, it feels like she gained a whole new family. As soon as she returns to Wang, she says she'll send another message to her mom, so she doesn't need to worry. She just hopes her mother stays safe until then and says goodbye. Yikes. The message ends saying she misses her. I don't know why, but that message kinda gives me the vibe Soso's gonna die, and Tazen's gonna go full beast mode or something. I mean, I'm trying to guess the future here, but I'm usually wrong anyway. Meanwhile, back at the White Flower Courtson house, our boy is already there, got the boss lady on her knees. Wants to know how the investigation's going. She, all awkward, says she already sent all the details, so why is he asking? But of course, Tazen asks about the investigation she's doing on him. Now the fool is shaking all over, has no idea what to say. He just laughs, asking if she really thought he would notice. Here she goes again, kneeling down, saying she committed a sin and begs for forgiveness. Our boy tells her to get up already. He's just curious to know what she found out. She's all wobbly, says his group is too cautious and she couldn't find much. Besides, the investigation wasn't about him, but about the Golden Wall Merchant Group. He tells her to just say what she did find out about him. But this woman, with all her weird expressions, says she didn't manage to uncover anything. Tazen says he's disappointed. At least she had some information on the River Marshal Alliance. She tells him not to worry. She'll mobilize the entire Hao faction to gather more intel on that. He thanks her and tells her to assign some people to his side, because he's got some business to settle with those guys. Suddenly, he snaps his fingers and tells her to bring writing materials. As soon as she does, he scribbles down a few characters and tosses the paper in her direction. It lands in front of the poor girl, and she's already trembling, saying she can feel it just by looking at it. That was the shadow step technique. Man, life is really just so easy for pretty women, huh? She did nothing, fooled him twice, and still walked away with exactly what she wanted. What a damn disgrace. He gets up and says that at least, yeah, that's not the entire technique. Obviously, a piece is missing. She thanks him. He just says that she's really grateful. She better do her job right. With the techniques he could give her, she'd be capable of becoming the leader of the Hao faction. Judging by the shocked look on her face, that's something she hadn't even considered until now. Next day, his journey begins. And look who's there, folks, right next to the carriage. Black 1, Black 2, and Black 3. Who's been missing the tender trio, huh? Mujin and the brother are just watching them leave through the gates. A clearly peculiar group, where no one ever shuts up. The brother then says, so the day finally came. He always thought the boy would be a child forever. Felt like it was just yesterday. Tazen pacing back and forth, complaining nonstop. He even gets a little emotional watching his brother start to get involved in house affairs. But even though he's got 2 doctors by his side, he's still worried about his health. Mujin tells him to relax. He doesn't just have 2 doctors. He's got 2 extremely skilled ones. It starts to rain and Black 1, 2, and 3 are just confused by all of this. Then the brother says he can't worry, since he's the one who sent the boy out in the first place. But when he looks toward the carriage, he's certain something big is about to happen. Scene switches to the Su Dogan residence. A guy standing there says the preparations for the ritual, along with what the elder requested, are almost ready. The masked man says, all right then. He wanted that guy to control the thing. That's gotta be Bon Mook, right man? He says he's heading out to handle it now. The man beside him says they were completely defeated and won, and even the alliances that supported them are now useless. If they failed this time, the elder himself would personally punish them. They'd probably turn into wandering souls, never finding peace, drifting for eternity. He glances at a pot nearby and says, it's coming out soon. The next chapter starts in the carriage with the three idiots just standing there. Needle comments that it's quite spacious and comfortable, which means that Big Tay is spending a lot of money. But W just says it's obvious that it's comfortable after all. He deserves the best. They stare at each other and Needle says the bastard is kissing up way too much. Meanwhile, someone's just thinking a fight is gonna break out between those two any second. Then Needle wants to know why they're going by land instead of the river, since that's going to take way longer. So someone explains that there have been some pirates around. But the guy just imagines that if pirates did show up, Tazen would probably kill them all. Obviously, the two idiots agree. Then Dumma wants to know if Miss Yun, the supposed fiancée of our guy, is also coming, and if so, why they aren't going together. Lady's got her info, alright, though the girl doesn't even serve her, so that makes sense. She says she already left by boat a while ago. That leaves Dubba confused, especially since she just talked about pirates. But Yun simply explains that the Yun mansion has numerous competent warriors. Besides that, Miss Yun is very skilled too. Oh girl, but now it doesn't make sense. You trust Miss Yun, who's all lost in life, but you don't trust Tazen. What's this now? Sueon revealed that Yun Heron is stronger than her. Man, our boy's real lucky. Reincarnated with a beautiful, crazy-in-love wife who's also stronger than the rest? Alright then, some folks really have life served on a platter. Damn, after saying all that, now Punubi is looking at her, wondering if the girl even realizes how strong she is. He figures she might be confused because everyone around her is absurdly strong. He has no idea if Heron is strong or not, but eventually, he's not gonna find out. Flashback time when Sueon was first introduced to serve Heron. Heron was training there all tired when Sueon walked up kinda shy and glanced up. Then the girl greeted her with a nice to meet you and said that together they'd become stronger. Back to the trip, by evening they stopped for a break. Sueon and Kyungwon man, they're at it again, training like always. Those two never rest. She goes at him full force and he notices something off and manages to block the attack. She's already coming at him with another strike and Kyungwon wonders why she's so fired up today, man. She goes in for a slash, he blocks it from the side and hits back with a perfect counter on her arm. No pain, huh? He just asks if the warrior's okay. She's kinda cold sweating, says she's fine and wants to keep going. When he's about to say she should talk to the medic first, Saucerbait shows up saying dinner's ready. Kyungwon was gonna say something, but weirdly, Sueon just walks off. Sometime later, they're all around the campfire eating, laughing, chatting. But Kyungwon is kind of down, head hanging. Dubba notices and asks what's up. He tries to pretend it's nothing serious, but Dubba just tells him to go after her. Better than letting time pass and regretting not saying anything. Kyungwon, though, explains that he has no idea what happened or what he could say. Dubba man tells him not to overthink it. All he needs to do is make it clear that he's worried. Dang, it's rare, right, when a musclehead character actually gives some solid real-life advice. Kyungwon takes a deep breath and Dubba hands him some rice balls. Obviously, to give to the girl, who at that moment is training alone in the forest. He walks up, takes a look, and sees that, once again, she's there, going all out. Yeah, slash to one side, flying spin kick. Meanwhile, Kyungwon's all confused, not knowing what to say. She lands a solid blow right on a rock. That surprises Kyungwon, but suddenly, Tazen speaks up, saying her form looks good. However, at the same time, her sword was carrying a bunch of useless thoughts. He had just walked up and she didn't even notice. Meaning, if he were an enemy, she'd be dead. Just like with everyone else, she tries to say something, but Tazen just cuts her off, telling her to empty her mind and keep all her senses open. She asks how many people in the world would even be able to do something like that. To which he responds that he knows at least 500 who can do it, meaning there must be plenty of others who can too. Man, that's a pretty specific number, huh? But alright. Oh boy, here comes the philosopher. He drops a truth bomb on her saying it wasn't necessarily a bad thing to live within the limits she had placed on herself. Obviously the girl, who already had a shaken up mind, now just got thrown way out there. Kyungwon was watching and suddenly, a galaxy started appearing. A drop fell on the girl and he started wondering if that was the so-called transcendental trance. Sheesh, what a fancy word. Suddenly, Sueon was surrounded by a golden hour light, and that's when our guy noticed that Kyungwon back there was shaking. Of course, Tazen had known about his presence for a long time already. Then he ran forward and approached Sueon. Looked like some kind of process was about to go down, man. I don't know what happened, but now it's morning and she's opening her eyes. Seems like she already knew about the transcendental trance thing too. She looks back and there's Kyungwon, standing ready. Ah, got it. I think she was going through something like a Super Saiyan evolution, and well, he stood guard in case someone tried to kill her in the middle of that trip, so she wouldn't die. She calls out to him, so he turns back to look at her, eyes all sunken from getting no sleep, congratulating her on the awakening. Of course, she's surprised and wants to know how long he's been there. To which he just replies that he was worried someone might interrupt the process. Oh, and she is all blushy out of nowhere. She asks what's that thing on the ground, right? Obviously, it's that food he brought. And again, she gets blushy and goes in for the munching. Says it's delicious and thanks him. Out of the blue, the boy just lights up, said 3 words, and brought the guy back to life. And with that, we're back on the road. In the carriage, our boy congratulates her for managing to awaken without much trouble. Suya immediately thanks him, saying it's all thanks to the teachings he's been giving her. He tells her to be more careful though, after all, if she'd gone into that process without someone around, she would have been screwed. He thanks him, saying he'll keep that in mind. Taezin throws in his bit about their relationship, saying she was lucky to have someone who wanted to stay by her side all night. Look how they're looking at each other, man. Meanwhile, there's Sosa right in the middle, holding the candle. Poor girl. And our girl is saying that this coward Kyungwon finally achieves something decent. Sometime later, there we were, arriving at Hubei province in the city of Shan. The first one rushing out of the carriage is Dove, saying that they finally arrived. His back was killing him. Taezin, on the other hand, had already noticed someone approaching and greeting him. What's this man? Before our boy could even say a word, the guy leaned in, whispered something in his ear, and left. So obviously wants to know who that nutjob was. Dub, the sly one, already knows that guy's from the Hao faction, which means, yeah, from that massage house where he handed over the scroll. Our boy got the info that Heron had arrived an hour ago. So now it's supposed to be his job to protect her from here on out. So thinks our boy's just saying that so he can go see his fiancée already, but he replies that they just got lucky arriving nearly at the same time. Also, he thinks it's been a while since she's seen her master. Suyeon realized our boy cared about her and thanked him. Not long after, there she was man, Heron, the most understanding fiancé in all of history, getting off her boat, saying it's been a while since she's seen Suyeon and it'd be nice if she were here. That's when someone called out to her, right? She got all excited, and when she looked ahead, there she was. She immediately gave her a big hug, super happy, saying she was thinking about her at that exact moment. While the two were happily chatting, suddenly someone behind them, holding a fan, asked the lady, and who's this one? It's some guy named Simon Ji-hak, the eldest son of the Simon house. And I can already tell he's gonna be one of those who ends up humiliated. He's trying to mock Suyeon's appearance. Oh my guy, you're in a martial world and you think this is a fashion show where you can just comment on people's clothes. Suyeon's just thinking that apparently these are the people who had her master all worried. Heron tries to explain, but then Kara laughs, saying it's ridiculous that she has a friendship like that with a bodyguard. He even says she needs to learn that if you get too close to the people who serve you, they end up forgetting where they came from. Plus, for a bodyguard, she seemed pretty weak. Heron yells that she's the one who asked Suyeon to be that way. Then we get a little flashback from when Suyeon beat up some chubby guy who said women weren't good at fighting. That day, Heron asked her not to draw too much attention and warned her it would be better to keep a low profile. Her family was weak, and if stuff like that kept happening, she could end up getting killed. Sometime later, we see that the one who got beaten in her place was Heron Man. She took a whipping on the legs. The girl's humble saved the servant and got beaten in her place. And all cute, she smiled and said she wanted to be friends. Back to the present, Suyeon was staring down the idiot when suddenly someone asked what the commotion was. It was Dove, obviously, shouting and showing up with a bunch of crazy folks. Our boy had a pretty serious little some dumb moo expression on his face, which made Heron all in love and blushing. The fashion show king was staring at our boy. What's he gonna criticize now? His cloak. Oh snap, here it comes. He starts trashing, saying that apparently a former fiancé of Miss Heron has arrived. The brothel king asks the fiancé if their engagement is over, and she says no. So he smirks at the clown and says apparently he's still married to her. Now what he wants to know is why that bastard came on the same boat as his fiancé. Heron got a bit shy and happy at the guy's jealousy and said that actually it was her father who asked several prominent people from the region to come with her. Taezin, out of nowhere, switches topics like a boss. He turns to her and says since they're still engaged, she'll be staying in his quarters. With that, they left, and Fashion King was left there biting his fan in rage because Heron didn't smile at him once on this whole journey. But as soon as she saw that damn Taezin, she did that little smile and blush. Poor guy says that no matter what, she's going to marry him. Oh my dude, you're gonna lose your life over a woman. Let it go, man, that's not gonna end well. On the way to the lodgings, Heron was just acting all dramatically sweet toward our boy. But the second he turns to her, she gets all flustered and runs ahead. Taezin's already noticed that clearly she's obsessed with him. The problem is he has no idea why and wonders if something happened when they were younger. Plus, the more he looked at her, the more he saw the resemblance. He remembers a woman with white hair saying that she was sure one day he would reach the level of a supreme being. Yeah man, but it seems she died before he could do that. And Taezin liked her since he's all devastated remembering that. Sometime later, they're arriving at the lodgings of the Martial Alliance of the River. The place was bigger than they expected, and Taezin says it's at least half the size of the Marim Alliance. W agrees, and our boy smiles, saying it's not bad at all. Sosa's all excited about the place. That's when an old man shows up, says he heard that some important people were arriving, and he's there to welcome everyone. W says they're obviously getting such good treatment because of him, since he's amazing. Needle, on the other hand, says it's obvious it should be him after all. He was originally invited for this. The two are butting heads when Taezin calls out to them. They turn around and our boy says that from now on, they're to search for doctors in the region. Dove obviously wants to know why. He already has two of the best in the world at his side. But Tazen says he's been using the two of them too much and their effectiveness is starting to drop. But of course they're gonna argue again because Needle says he's much better at judging who's a good doctor, so he'll take care of it. But Dub is willing to make a bet and asks what the guy wants. Needle thinks for a second and points and says he wants to know his identity. They stare each other down for a second, and Dubby asks if he'll be able to handle the truth. Needle says that's a problem he'll deal with. Dubby agrees and says that if he wins, the guy will have to teach him the techniques with needles. Of course, the guy doesn't want to teach at all, says that's the only thing that gives him value in this world. But the Slay guy says he just wants to learn the acupuncture part, and with that, Needle agrees, saying alright then. The one who brings the best doctors for Tazen wins. That made Beto laugh while he thinks he's finally going to uncover the truth behind that guy's identity. Night falls, and in front of the room, the two are standing there, and obviously, Tazen's probably inside, sucking someone's energy. Dova comments that those ones didn't seem to be suffering as much as the others. Needle agrees, saying that normally they'd be screaming until their throats burst. Just then, Tazen suddenly opens the door, and Dova, looking like a total idiot, asks why our boy came out without making a sound. Tazen ignores him and just says the people they brought were awful, and that they're to bring one more person each day. They were about to argue, but one look from him and Dubby quickly says that will definitely happen. Then Needle, a bit awkward, asks which of the two doctors satisfied dear Tazen more. Tazen says he's already guessing they made a dumb bet, but he'll only decide once they've both brought all the doctors. So yeah, the two poor guys were sent away into the night. Missed those days when Tazen spent the night at the brothel. Even though nothing happened, it was more fun. Then the protagonist mentions that he's been learning the spirit he absorbs from each person is different. The souls of doctors usually heal his body, while the soul they draw from the Corson gives him a lecherous kind of energy. Wonder why that is, huh? Also, obviously, the pain and the experience are very different. The more corrupted the soul of a doctor, the more pain he feels and the less our boy gets healed, which makes it clear that right now he's in need of some pure souls to recover faster. That's when Soso shows up all shy, saying she came to check on him, to see if he's okay. Man, that's when our boy saw a pure soul right in front of him. Off he goes being wicked, saying she showed up at the perfect time. She's a bit confused, but he just touches her head, saying she won't feel any pain, so there's nothing to worry about. Sting changes to a cave, where that guy Ball Mook is walking with the old man. He wants to know what they're doing there, and the old man replies that they're almost there, so he doesn't need to worry. They're looking for something that's been ripening for quite a long time. There were some options that had matured for more than 70 years, but those were saved for the great elders. Even so, what they're after is perfect, and most warriors wouldn't be able to endure it. The old man's face shifts into a big smile as he says they finally found it. In front of the cave, he asks what he thinks of it. And man, you can see there's a body lying on top of the slab. How long's that thing been there? Not just one body, man. It's a room full of bodies. And obviously, yeah, the people in there look kinda dehydrated. The scene shifts to Lord Dogen's residence. They grabbed the fourth dried up body and started a ritual there. Music playing, drums beating, people chanting, some jutsu nonsense like Naruto. Written under the guy's feet was the word return. Whoa, okay, now we get it. That's how you get someone to fall. And this thing they're making them drink seems like it's souls. The guy standing on the left says the soul bottles are almost fully merging with the body. Ball and Move asks if they're basically creating people that are kind of like undead. The guy explains it's close to that, but the difference is that these corpses are maintained because they infuse them with corpse energy, which means the original soul is still present in the body. That's why they're different from zombies and can even use martial arts. Of course, in a state like that, the person would probably be better off dead than alive, and that's why they're going to place someone else's soul in the body to control it. Bong Mook is realizing he's in a way crazier group than he thought. He comments that it must be hard to make something like this happen, but Walmart Orochimaru tells him not to worry. They have some secret abilities that only the elders possess, and obviously, those make it work. The drum guys start beating harder and the music shifts. It seems they're getting to the final part of the thing. One guy's holding the jutsu, while the dude full of life is lying on the slab. Some 3D reverberations start up, the guy launches the jutsu into the air, the candles go out, and the whole place goes dark. With that, the bodies rise. The next morning, there were the doctors, side by side, fighting as always, when someone nearby shouts that he's happy to meet such famous physicians. They bow and say that actually it's an honor for them to meet someone so illustrious. That's Bak Layab, the leader of the River Alliance. He says he's nothing more than a worker of this place. The two doctors can only think that this guy had an extraordinary aura. At the table, he wants to know if they're both with the Golden Wall Merchant Group, and obviously, they confirm. Layab responds that it's strange, since they're extremely skilled. There aren't many places that wouldn't want people like them. The two start listing. They've been contacted by the Aga clan, some other alliance, a bunch of groups. Layab says he's curious what made them turn all that down for a group of merchants. W answers that he simply found someone who sees his true worth. The two idiots are shaking. They absolutely don't want to say they're working here because they were threatened. And Needle says he's working for the merchants because he lost a bet. With those answers, Liab questions if they're not serving the group but rather just the young master. Both just respond that yeah, that's true, man. They know there's no hiding it anymore. Whoa, man, but it seems like the bastard has his eyes on our boy's doctors. He's sure that if he had two doctors like that by his side, the Marshall River could dominate the world. And he knows the name of the second son controlling them is Tazen, and he has to find him no matter what. Meanwhile, Soso is waking up in her room. Right away, she remembers that it seems like she spent the night with Master Biak. When he touched her head, she felt calm, warm. It was a peaceful dream. Suddenly, she gets up and realizes she's been asleep for a long time. She walks to one of the rooms, and from deep inside, it looked like there was some strange purple energy. In the middle of the room is our boy doing his daily practice. Seems like the pure energy he pulled from Soso was really valuable. Of all the energy he's obtained so far, this one was different from anything else. It was like his body and soul were stabilizing. If before he was getting energy just to survive, with hers he managed to gather energy to solidify. Really, when it comes to demonic arts, he's got a lot to learn. Only now, after all that, is he finally able to feel at peace. Ah, so our boy is gonna have to go around gathering the good people of this world. Yeah, it seems like that's the path, huh? Now it all makes sense. Maybe that's why the celestial demon wants to live a peaceful life, who knows? The scene then shifts to Heron entering the meeting of the new stars. Basically, right, it's everyone who's somewhat promising. As she walks through the place, everyone comments on how amazing and talented she is. But walking around, all she wants to know is, where's Tazen? Suian, mind reader, asks if she's thinking about Mr. Tazen, and tells her not to worry too much about him. He's probably just training and getting stronger. She reveals she went through that awakening, and her friend gets all emotional, saying that explains why she's so strong now. When suddenly, someone calls out to them. Fashion Show King wants to know what she's doing there. Yep, the fiancé. Right away, her expression changes, and she just greets him. But the guy flashes that sleazy little smile, saying the situation is perfect. He invites her for a drink, says it will be at a nice quiet place. Heron plays deaf and, well, doesn't say anything. Then Fashion Warrior wants to know if she's hesitating because of the fiancé, and says that a merchant like that one isn't worthy of someone like her. She's already trying to leave, saying she's not feeling well, but out of nowhere, he grabs her arm. Man, then he dies and won't even know why. He'll be like, oh crap, I didn't even do anything. He says liquor can cure any illness and he's got the good stuff. She's trying to pull away when Suian, oh boy, grabs his arm and tells him to let go. He tries to say something, but she just crushes his wrist, saying it's not okay to act that way towards someone who's engaged. The guy yanks his hand away and says that a bodyguard shouldn't behave like that. Apparently, she doesn't know what clan he's from. To which Suian replies that judging by how he acts, it's not a clan worthy of respect. Even after all that humiliation, the guy decides to introduce himself as Kaiman Jihak. He wants to know if someone like her really has the guts to go against him. Suian's expression changes, and the guy wants to know if he's really gonna have to deal with her. I thought she was about to slash his throat, but she just stood quiet, man. When suddenly, someone in the hall starts asking if they were going to deal with him. Everyone in the hall recognizes the boy everyone in the guild's been talking about. Heron turned around and saw it was our boy, asking the guy if he was the one who just wouldn't shut up. Okay, and then the scene cuts to the soul-drinking dudes again. After downing their glasses, they stood up. The guy looked at his arm, certain he had died. So why was he there? His body was different to the point that he knew something had changed. That's when Walmart Orochimaru asked if the Guan demon had awakened. The guy immediately goes for the neck and asks who he is. Orochimaru sends a mental message. And man, he says they were saved by the elder with a ridiculously long name, so we're just calling him Big Wang. And it seems the guy's words triggered a reaction in everyone with the little purple eyes. Back to the showdown, the Fashion King, who says our boy is nothing more than a purple pimp out of nowhere. He says he wanted to ask something. He wants to know how long he plans to keep bothering Miss Yen. Tezen's confused, bothering her, to which Fashion King says he, a worthless merchant, should stop being so obsessed with her. Tezen just fires back with a question. What's this about him being obsessed? The guy responds that clearly he's the problem. Since the engagement wasn't broken off, he should let her go so she can have a proper marriage. The King of Questions strikes again, wanting to know if this clown really believes Heron would go after him if she were single. Then Jihak, for the first time, are actually using the guy's name. Wants to know if he's really planning to go against the Xaimin clan. Even I'm starting to get mad at Tazen, who throws in one more question. He wants to know why the guy's suddenly talking about the clan like that. Was he just a loser before they backed him? The clown starts trembling and suddenly turns around saying they'll settle this outside. Oh man, I think that was the last thing you should have done. Now there's Tazen standing between the three clowns, asking when they're going to attack. He's actually kind of excited. The king of martial fashion says the kid's apparently lost his mind out of fear, but Tazen just replies that lately he's been feeling a bit stronger and really wants to test it out. Oh boy, let's talk about Fashion King. He might be weird, but at least he was the one who attacked first. Got respect that, right? Our boy dodged easily, grabbed his arm, spun him, and threw him up. Of course, the guy landed headfirst into the ground. But hey, credit for taking the first swing. Usually these types would send a servant first. Our boy even hit the guy's fan on the ground, did some Ronaldinho Gaucho-style kick-ups with it, and launched it right at the guy's forehead, left a dent. The Fashion King gets up all beat up, saying this isn't over yet. Our boy smiles and the others get ready, saying they're going in again. The poor fool is sure Tazen must have used some kind of trick, but this time he's gonna activate the Xiamen martial art. There's no way he'll lose now. But the protagonist was already charging toward the two of them, saying he hadn't even really started yet. They looked like they were gonna grab his shoulder, but a second later he was already behind them with a hand on each of their heads. And I thought he was about to do some soul-stealing move, but he just made the two idiots bash heads and collapse like trash. A little later, the fool was regaining consciousness when he saw Tazen in front of him. He tried to say something but couldn't, and our boy thanked him, saying he discovered something really interesting thanks to them. Now he just had to confirm it one more time. While all that was happening, the folks inside the meeting were quiet. Damn, these people are disciplined, huh? No one even peeked out the window or anything, and everyone jumped when the leader of the Alliance came walking into the room. In that shot, it looks like he's either in a wheelchair or moonwalking. And of course, he came there to meet Tazen, but where's the little brat? Just as he was about to leave, look who shows up, our boy. They stood face to face, and the guy asked if Tazen knew who he was. Man, a bunch of curious people were watching from the background. And our boy played dumb, saying he thinks he's seen him somewhere before. Weirdly enough, I thought the guy would get mad, but he actually looks surprised. And Tazen's expression shifts because he has seen this guy before. It was decades and decades ago. This guy was one of the few people who survived his aura. He was someone with a lot of drive even if he didn't have much talent. Knowing he became the leader of the River Alliance really proves how far he's come. Then the guy says he's gonna have to talk to him. Oh boy, but Tazen responds that would only be possible if he actually wanted to talk. The boss replies that he plans to talk with everyone there, but the boy's first on the list. Tazen, bold as ever, says he's not really in the mood and the guy could go talk to someone else nearby. That poor dude's eyes went wide asking if he was the chosen one. Lyob realized that this kid was arrogant and couldn't figure out why he was wasting a chance to connect with him. He was sure something was off, not just with Tazen, but with this other crazy guy chasing him too. And our boy just left without saying another word, thinking that if he were the kid from back then, he could beat him down, but it looked bad to beat up the leader of an alliance. You trying to say you can, Celestial Demon? The scene shifts to the Black Forge, where it looks like some things are being forged. At least they use names. What's confusing them, though, is that the fog today seemed way too dense. But one with black hair tells the other not to get distracted, since they have a bunch of deliveries to make for the River Alliance folks. But the old guy with white hair is just standing there without saying a word. He managed to spot a figure in the middle of the fog, someone wearing a hat, moving their head in a weird way. And that's when he saw one of the soldiers getting devoured. Considering that one guy said they weren't zombies, I think that description actually fits. The two old men started shaking and wondered if that thing was even human. Behind one of them, a man raised his arm, a bell rang, and the zombies went berserk, rushing toward the blacksmiths. Obviously, the poor guys ran for it and abandoned the forge. Sometime later, they were hiding out nearby. But he was sure there was no way to escape that place. In front of him, at least, there was a horse. So if he got the chance, he had a way out of there. The zombies were heading in another direction. He wonders if this is the chance he's been waiting for. Without thinking twice, he gets up and bolts toward the horse. One of the zombies looks back, but the old man had already mounted and took off galloping. Oh man, he was looking at the gate, thinking that once he passed through, he'd be safe. But from behind, one of the zombies got ready and leaped, landing right in front of him. With that, everyone in the area had been killed, man. And obviously, the four who had been resurrected there are the bastards behind all this chaos. They regroup in a circle as they begin to absorb all the blood from the area. In front of them, a pillar of blood starts rising toward the moon, and from it emerges some dude with white hair. Looks like he might be the Great Elder or something. Next day, back at the River Martial Alliance, Tazen made new discoveries after absorbing those souls. Even though they weren't as valuable or regenerative as those from doctors, for some weird reason he received some memories. He really still had a lot to learn about this technique. Then someone knocks on the door saying the doctors have been brought in. Oh man, yep, is two doctors dragging in the poor souls of the day. Of course, once again, they want to know who brought the better one. To which Tazen just says they brought ones of equal quality again. In fact, if he had to give an honest opinion, the standards seemed to have dropped, so actually both of them failed. If they made a bet, then both of them should pay what they promised. The guys yell that it's ridiculous, but one stern look from Tazen and they start trembling. He says he's going to keep a closer eye on the two of them now, and they'd better not make dumb bets like this again without his awareness. Meanwhile, the Alliance leader was receiving news that everyone at the forge had disappeared. Lyob says it doesn't make sense. They're not objects. How could they all just vanish? Vario says that's exactly what it looks like. They sent some people to go fetch a few items, but when they got there, everything was gone. The leader replies that it makes no sense. Those guys had delivered countless items recently and were just about to get paid. The old guys suggest they might have been attacked by an outside force. Also, it seems there's a plague starting to spread in the area. Liob says fine then, they should ask the divine doctor and the eccentric Needle for help. The elder asks why, and he explains that it's the perfect opportunity to build a relationship with those two. Also, they were to ask Tazin for help as well and reward all three of them handsomely. That way, they'd form a strong bond. The old man doesn't get why all this is necessary, but just says alright then. Meanwhile, Liob seems to have sensed that the boy has some martial potential, and he wants to see how he handles this. Next scene, there's our boy and his group walking through the gate, accompanied by other people. He stops for a moment and instantly senses the smell of blood. One of the guys says he doesn't smell anything, to which our boy replies that you don't smell with your nose. Well, that's how it is. He's the protagonist, he makes the rules. But he explains that no one survived in that place, at least 100 people died there. He turns around and asks if he knows anything about poison, to which Double replies no. He knows a lot of things, but there are countless poisons out there. Meadle says that if we're talking about poison, no one knows more than the person known as the poison demon. Then Tazin says that what he's feeling in that place is something frequently used by that person. W is shocked that this beast is saying the poison demon killed everyone, to which Tazin simply replies that there's something disturbing mixed in the smell of this place. The two of them were supposed to find out what it was along with why there was that smell of poison. The poor guys still can't smell anything and don't understand what he's talking about, but they just go with it. Then Tazin walks ahead, wondering why he was feeling an energy similar to the soul-enhancing demonic technique he uses. A short while later, there's Dove giving orders to everyone, trying to organize things. Suddenly, Liob appears. The two fools bow and Dubby asks what brings such a busy man like him all the way out here. The chief replies that no matter how busy he is, he can't ignore the people he's asked a favor of. Besides, he has one more favor to ask. Before the man can explain, Needle already jumps in asking if he's going to request that they examine the people living in the area. The chief is surprised he guessed it, and Needle explains that under Tazin's orders, they were already investigating and found traces of poison. Also, it seems this was already spreading to the surrounding areas. Liob, who earlier thought it was a plague, now realizes it's poison, meaning it was caused by someone. Meanwhile, our boy is arriving home. Out of nowhere, he channels his inner ballerina and starts twirling back and forth, step to the left, step to the right. He says it's not ballet, it's the technique of the celestial earth step. While dancing his non-ballet, he says he's sure that was the poison used by the poison demon. In the past, that arrogant idiot thought he was untouchable and ended up crossing paths with our boy. If he'd run into anyone else, things might have gone differently. But he ran into the protagonist. The guy's 11 poison technique couldn't beat the demonic soul incineration art. With that, he was completely defeated, and as punishment, had to follow Tazin forever. On top of that, he revealed his poison techniques and secrets every single day just to stay alive. Tazin smiles, remembering that honestly, it was pretty funny having that guy around. But now he wants to know what that bastard is up to lately. Suddenly, someone calls out to Tazin. It's Needle, who says the investigation is complete, and the antidote, just as he requested, can be administered at any time. Our guy thanks him and tells them to prepare a lot because they're going to need a good amount. Needle says understood, but adds that the more he investigates, the weirder things get. Didn't this not seem like the poison demon's doing? Tazin asks why, and he explains that as lethal as the poison is, it's being made and refined in a much worse way. If it had been the real poison demon, this whole city would already be in ruins. Not to mention, he realized that whatever it is, it wasn't made to kill people. It seems more like it delays the body's recovery by slowing down the vital energy. Basically, if used continuously, a person could survive, but they'd be nothing more than a walking corpse. With that said, they would continue treating the people poisoned in the region. Upon hearing that, Tazin is certain, whatever it is, it's related to that feeling he had when he thought he sensed the demonic art he uses. At this moment, he needs more information, a perfect job for the Hao faction. He calls for Kumwan and says it's time for them to go. But just then, the love-struck fiancé spots our boy. She's already heading over, wanting to know where he's going. At the same time, she says she's here to help Needle and also help the Divine Doctor. That's when Tazin drops the bomb, right? He says he's heading now to the House of Golden Jade. Of course, what you're all thinking, and Suiyan asks if that's not the name of that famous brothel. He says yes, that one, the biggest one in all of Yicheng. The poor fiancé is there, man, blushing and startled. I don't know if she's shocked by the enthusiasm or if she just doesn't know what to feel. Suiyan, however, finds it strange and says that if he has the cloud around, he wouldn't need that. The guys turn to her and say that if she's bored, she can come too. Man, alright, that was harsh. The poor girl's even clutching her cloak. Poor thing, the celestial demon could at least explain to the girl. She's totally wrecked, her face pale blue. Saying that she's already said it countless times, He can do whatever he wants. And with that, she runs off saying she's going to help the doctors. So Aim goes after her and our boy just watches, trying to figure out what's up with this crazy girl. She must be busy to run off in such a hurry, so he's off to the brothel. Yeah, for sure that's why she left. Then we see a group gathered near the city, the two girls working to gather information. The two doctors are exhausted. After spending the whole day making the elixirs, Needle is mad, saying it's been years since he treated even a single patient in a day, and now suddenly he's stuck doing it for free. Delma wants to know how he ever got his reputation as a great doctor if he barely treats people. So he explains that to improve his skills, he used to treat 100 patients a day at the start. His friend replies that that's nothing. He once treated over 200 in a single day. Needle's sure he's lying, but Dubby says just remembering that day makes him shake. The old man says it must have been terrible for the patients to be treated so quickly, but Dubby says he didn't have a choice. It was his master who forced him to do that. The only person scarier than that guy is Tazen. Or maybe, who knows, the guy might have even been worse. Then Needle asks if he knows anything about Tazen's true identity. Dubby says unfortunately no, but yes, he did once meet someone who was strangely similar. And then the old guy loses it and says they've been on the same side for a long time. He should just tell them already who he is, who Master Tazen is, and what this is all about. Dub pauses for a second, smiles, and then says, they were the sacred celestial demon cult. Needle immediately says he didn't hear anything, not a thing. He really shouldn't have asked. But, well, curiosity kills the cat, and he wants to know exactly who the boy's master was. Suddenly, Dubby's expression changes and he stands up. Looking out the window, the sky seemed orange. He stood there, frozen, not moving. And Needle says it's clear now. They're not going to get a moment's rest. On top of the walls, man, the zombies are arriving. Oh boy, and now they're face to face with Sueon and the nicest fiancé in all of China. She has no idea what it is, but Dewey just yells to get everyone into a safe zone now. When Karen tries to ask something, he just shouts that they have zero chance. Needle says someone needs to call the rest of the River Marshal Alliance to come help. Sueon says she's going to listen to Heron. The guards come face to face with the zombies, while Heron runs out all worried about her husband, of course, who went off to the brothel. At that moment, while she's out here nearly dying, look where our boy is, man, having tea served by the most famous woman in the house. Kyungwon hears her asking our guy if he was looking for her. She apologizes for not being the first to appear in person and says they've been planning some things and lately she's been really busy. Tazen obviously just tells her to stop disappointing and do her job properly, and he wants to know what brings her to this region. She explains that recently there have been some suspicious activities in the River Alliance, and she came to assist directly with that. They're there to investigate the Black Steel Hound. If I'm not mistaken, that's the crew from the Forge, the one that no longer exists. In the middle of the explanation, someone knocks on the door and says a message from the Alliance has arrived, and she says to let them in. The door opens, and the guy immediately walks in, saying the Divine Doctor and the eccentric Needle are asking for help. Tazen looks a bit confused, and the guy says it's something urgent, adding that they're in a tent nearby. Tazen wants to know why they're not busy treating the people who were poisoned, to which the old man replies that he doesn't know either, but it seems like a highly unusual situation that requires him immediately. But Tazen wants to know how he found him in the first place, since he never told either of them where he was going. The old man tries to come up with an excuse, but Tazen just orders him immobilized, slamming him face first to the ground. The leader of the Hao faction realizes why he's treating a guy from the River Alliance like that. Even Kyungwon already figured it out. He explains that neither Needle nor the Divine Doctor would ever seek out Tazen, since they value their lives. And the protagonist tells her to properly investigate the River Alliance personnel and to take this guy with her because he's a spy. She's sure there's some kind of trap waiting for him. But our boy simply says, whatever it is, it's inevitable. He calls Kyungwon over and says now they're going to look for those two. Man, outside is swarming with the zombies, dear God. At least while a bunch are showing up, none of them have attacked yet. Ah, that's right, they're waiting for that guy to ring the bell. The doctors are there, not really sure what they're supposed to do. And Dubby had this feeling that these guys looked familiar. That's when, among all of them, a figure started to appear, and his expression changed. A man with black hair told everyone to lower their weapons. He was only there to talk to the doctors. Dubby says that if a guy just wanted to talk, he didn't need to bring a small army with a murderous aura. And Needle comments that they looked like some kind of zombie, but Dubby could feel that they were half dead, half alive. Both the energy of the living and the dead were coexisting in their bodies. He's about to say something about these guys seeming like they're from his cult, but cuts himself off mid-sentence, which annoys Needle, who tells him to stop talking cryptically and keeping secrets. Dubba, however, says he's sure the weak point of those creatures is exactly where those two opposing energies meet. That the old man responds to, saying that since he's got info, he'll save the questions for later. He then shouts, hailing the masked guy who wants to chat to come forward already. The guy with the covered face says he's got an offer. If the two of them wanted to join their side, they'd be welcomed. They were offering rewards they couldn't even imagine. Needle says it's ridiculous that he brings a bloodthirsty horde like that and then offers something like that. Only an idiot would accept. He even asks if the guy is one of the fools who must have taken the offer to be part of this whole mess. The masked man replies that he wasn't expecting things to end this way. He raises the bell and warns that things wouldn't end peacefully. The moment the bell rang, the horde of zombies started roaring and charging toward everyone. Needle immediately pulled out his weapon and warned that he couldn't protect everyone, so people needed to fend for themselves. At the first movement, a ton of needles were flying and dropping zombies to the ground stone cold. But then more just kept coming. The poor extra characters, well, you know how it goes. They slashed the creatures, but nothing happened, just got devoured. And of course, the rest of the group is freaked out because it looked like those creatures didn't feel pain. Needle kept mowing down more of them, but tells Dove that at this rate, everyone there is going to die. He's fighting in his martial arts poses, though it's still not clear if the guy even has real power. And what's this now, man? He turned into a machine gun, seriously. He's launching like 20 needles per second. Dove, on the other hand, is freaked out. It doesn't seem like there's any end to these creatures. If only Tazen or Kyung-won were there, they'd have a chance. Right as he's thinking that some were coming right up behind him, about to grab him by the head. Man, I thought someone would save him right at that moment, but nope, the zombie slammed him to the ground and blood splattered. But of course, the blood spurted because someone cut off the zombie's head. Oh snap, I thought it was our protagonist, but nope, it's the perfect wife. Dub is all shaky, just mutters a thank you. Then Sueyeon shows up asking if they're okay, and they explain that most people were already being evacuated. What they don't understand is what exactly those things are. They didn't seem human. Dubby says he's not sure, but they were kind of like zombies that are still half alive, and clearly, it seems like he and Needle are the ones being targeted. Sueyeon asks for more details, but he says there's no time. All she needs to know is to kill them, either cut off the head or break the energy flow. But some zombies show up and the two burros get ready. As they charge, Dubby yells that they should aim for the middle of the belly. Sueyeon is keeping an eye on Hera and thinking that until now, she's always been the one protecting her. But today, man, it was her turn to protect her lady. Ah, go for it, girl, since our boy would never be that romantic. Zombies are taking needle shots, but man, Needle is, well, running out of needles. And worse than that, he's getting worn out. That's because to land those precise, technique-filled hits, he's been using his internal energy, and now, yeah, it's gone. Dubby says he still has one card left to escape, but the problem is, well, it's kind of a gamble. Needle says he's not leaving this place alone. Poor Dubby says he, the protagonist, will stay until the end. Little does he know, he's not the protagonist of this story. But still, he pulls something out from under his cloak and tells him to go find Master Tazen. Then he shouts for the bastards and throws something on the ground. It bursts into red smoke. The gas that rises makes the zombies start coughing up blood. Apparently he had something like this planned, though he didn't expect it to actually work. The creatures start to swell up, and their heads explode right in front of them. He then tells Needle that now there's a chance he can escape. He's going to hold them off here, but Needle better get out. Needle agrees, but tells him not to die either. Dub just replies not to worry, after all, he's the older brother. But actually, the two of them just take off running together, apparently man. While the cloaked guy stands there confused, wondering how these two are still alive. But he rings the bell once more and a bunch of zombies appear, attacking them from behind. What's weird is that now, light is coming out of their mouths and eyes, and the two of them have to shield their faces. The old man uses whatever energy he has left to launch a few more needles, and he hits the bloated monster. But the thing doesn't die, and behind it you could see an endless horde. Round 2 of the fight begins, and meanwhile, Sueyeon and Heron are slashing away at everything. The problem is, it looks like Heron, man, she got bitten on the arm. Sueyeon runs over to help and asks if she's okay. But man, on top of the wall, there's another massive wave coming. The two of them can't believe that after all this fighting, there's still so many left. And in that moment, man, Heron's just sad. Looks like she's going to die, especially after having fought with Tazen. Smiling like a lunatic, she says she just wanted to see him one more time. Man, I can't even imagine a backstory that would make a girl like Tazen this much. I think she's just playing crazy, honestly. And she smiles at Sueyeon, saying it's okay. She's happy that at least she's there with a friend. That's when she saw the same smile from when they were younger. And man, she stood up saying, yeah, she's here with a friend. And if they're going to die, they're going to fight to the end. They pointed their swords at the zombies that leaped toward them, but right at that moment, a purple glow appeared behind the two of them. And suddenly, all the creatures exploded. Oh man, from behind all that light, look who was blowing everything up, huh? Tazen was holding one of the monster's heads while all the others burst apart. And he asked why there are so many half-dead things in this place. The ladies and the clueless doctors were already smiling. But up on top of the house, the masked man was watching, saying he didn't expect things to get this bad. He takes off his mask and puts something in his mouth, saying there won't be another chance. Suddenly, he starts transforming himself. Something's emerging from his ribs, and down below, Dubby asks what the hell that is. I don't know what's happening there. All I know is the guy's screaming like a madman, his fingers stretching out. Suddenly, he turned into one of those big monsters too, with a white mouth. Needle asks what that is, and Dubby explains that it's someone unleashing their latent power. But for that to happen, the person has to give up being human. Tazen, however, knew that wasn't all. He could see something red glowing in that guy's chest, and he just wanted to know where's the like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.